Most of the jokes I've seen.
We are live. It's going live. I'm still listening to Ward Radio in
Oh, geez.
one of his ears right here.
I listened to the first part of the Mormon Stories General Conference on the way home.
Oh, how was that?
Just typical shit.
Did you get to the part where they wouldn't mention Jacob Hansen?
Yeah, like it's close to the end. We're just like, I don't know, just Jacob and John are they're the exact same coward, just on different sides of the religious fence. Like, and we have examples from both sides from this very week of them just refusing to play fair.
I loved how gracious John Dehlin was in being really super excited for Alyssa Grenfeld and way passing them up and shattering the ex-Mormon ceiling.
I thought we were going to talk about how he says because he says I'm not going to talk about certain people because I think certain people are so horrible that they don't deserve to be platformed. But we're totally into having critics on. And he literally said that in the same breath, yeah, you really are.
They lie to themselves so hard.
Well, because the whole thing was with Jacob and John, where it's like the reason why I know they're cowards. Like, okay, if you really thought that he was such a turd, you would have him on so you could give him enough rope to hang himself. Just bring him on and let the people decide. But I think they both know that you don't want to talk to certain people because they're gonna poke holes and cause you cognitus. And you're not in that game of actually evaluating your own beliefs.
Well, I will give John this. He is just smart enough to know when people are smarter than him and stay away. I think Jacob also usually knows when people are smarter than him, and he kind of avoids them. Dehlin knows that Jacob's smarter than him, and he's better at him at talking and debating and all that shit. So he knows that.
Oh yeah,
it would be a shit show, and he probably looks stupid. He had those. He talk about the Paul boys or whatever they were. Those two missionary dudes that he had on.
He kept bragging about he had them on, like they were the real heavy hitters.
I know. I'm like, dude, those guys were I'm sure they're nice guys, but fucking hell, that was insufferable to watch. Yeah. They said the dumbest things to him.
He mentioned it was one of his biggest shows of the year, didn't he? I guess of people wanting to watch the ex-Mormons and Mormons go at each other. Let's listen to him right here, not mention the name as he showed it on the screen of Voldemort the Hansen.
Follow up. LDS discussions.
Oh, come
on. Continue LDS discussions and follow up second-class saints. We have ideas. We would love your ideas as well. We want to continue the panels. We have a super chat here. Nathaniel says,
please debate Jacob Hansen. That would bring in some serious viewership and have Jim Bennett on.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. When he talked about we had critics on, we had Jim Bennett. No, he's on your side, guys.
They get Jim Bennett and Patrick Mason. That was the funniest shit ever. I'll never forget the Patrick Mason one where he's like, and I'm going to let Patrick Mason ask me some questions. You can ask me anything he wants. And he gets pretty hard hitting there. And the first question is, how do you deal with all the criticisms? Isn't it super hard for you, John Dehlin?
Politically, they're all unified. Jim Bennett did write that answer to the CES letter, so he still believes in the Mormonism somehow, even though he's the head of their morality. I mean, I guess he believes in the Book of Mormon, but they need to catch up to his morality. So he's staying a member of the church because maybe one day they'll see it correctly as he does, I guess.
Please debate, and then I'm not even going to name the person that he's listing there. That would bring in some serious viewership.
It's such Streisand effect stuff.
Dude, I think it's just ubiquitous with maybe it was just that I was raised with Harry Potter because I'm sure there's a bunch of other stories where they just refuse to say the bad guy's name, but that affected everyone who read Harry Potter as a kid. Got that message and you knew it right away. The second you read the first time they refuse to say, you see Dumbledore say his name, and it makes McGonagall uncomfortable. And you're like, oh, he's the brave guy because he says the name anyway. And
yeah. No, because the lesson that I always took from that, that like I always felt like way back before the lefties turned on Harry Potter that they didn't understand. It's like, because for me the whole message of that thing was, okay, in the world of Harry Potter, there are actual magic words. Like you can actually say magic words that have real effects and can actually harm people, right? And that the whole lesson was that the power in Voldemort's name was the fear you felt.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing is that Harry showed, I'm not afraid, and I'll just say the name. And so like that whole thing, like in a world with real magic powers, it turned out fear is a power too, you know? But nobody ever got that message in the lefty world, and they just want to keep saying, "Oh, don't say Jacob Hansen."
What if Harry Potter introduced autistic wizards, and the autistic wizards have no power? Like they can say the exact same words, they just don't work. Like, oh, I guess I don't buy into it that much.
You ever watch Flash
I don't
Gits?
believe. What?
Flash Gits?
Yeah, it's a cartoon on
word.
YouTube. It's they have a hilarious cartoon of the Hogwarts special ed teacher.
That's already funny. I just wrote 15 minutes of that in my head.
But the magic that the autists actually have isn't that they can't do magic. It's just that the other magic also doesn't work on them. They're like, oh, Imperio, whatever. Like, I'm autistic. It doesn't work. How is energy not affecting you? I'm a spiritual empath. I'm autistic.
Classic.
Anyway, all the way back to Dylan. I'm not going to say his name. The thing is, like, you could also say, hey, John DeLynn, explain the Streisand fact to us. Like, I'm more than positive I've listened to him rant on about how the dumb old church just did a Streisand effect here. I'm more than positive I've heard him do that, you know. But.
And have Jim Bennett on again. So, Nathaniel, I'm not going to name the person that you are asking me to debate, and I'll just say why. There are people who engage in good faith with a certain standard of ethics or decorum,
like Jim Bennett,
arbitrary, intuitional sort of standards. And the person that you're asking me to bring on hasn't shown me that good faith yet.
What does Jacob Hansen do that's worse faith than what they do?
Nothing.
They keep mentioning that he brought up his kids. Jared and I were there with him when he brought up Dylan's kids, and it had a point with it. It wasn't just a look at the dumb kids. His kids publicly go around announcing, and you publicly announced on this thing that they're weird sexual. That they have different weird sexual identities, and they're going to write books about them.
Yeah, his daughter wrote a fucking book about it and had a YouTube channel. I don't like it.
Yeah,
that's fair.
They advertised it on this.
Yeah, John was proud of it. Jacob commented on it. Now, meanwhile, John DeLynn, Maven brought up my ex-wife. God knows why, right? Like without a reason. It was just. I don't know. I don't even know. It was strange, right? But there you go.
Not to mention, like they act like I've seen that Colby Reddish, who I think is live right now with Culture Hall. But that guy go and say, "I'm the Robin Hood of assholery. I'm a good person and only do good person things all the time. But I will be an asshole to Jacob Henson because I'm the asshole. I am the Robin Hood of assholery." Like, no, we're all just assholes on here, and. Everything that John DeLynn does, you say Jacob Hansen will pick on Julie Hanks. This is what Julie Hanks says. She says this, she says that, she says this, she says that. Is she Mormon? Let's evaluate it. What do you guys do but like pull up people's names and evaluate the stuff they say or don't say? Like there's nothing that Jacob Hansen did about, what's his name, about Julie Hanks that you guys didn't do about Brad Wilcox. It's not any different. You aren't the Robin Hoods of assholes. You're assholes on different sides. That's all it is.
I'm the asshole this city needs, but not the one it deserves. You either live long enough to see yourself become the asshole, or you die No, it's you either live long enough, you either die the asshole, or you live long enough to see yourself become the cuck.
I've mentioned it before, but from the beginning, one of the things I was thinking of calling this channel was the 13th Clown. And what the 13th Clown is just the story of this guy watching 12 clowns, and he gets up on the stage and starts reciting Shakespeare, RFM, and describing what all the other clowns are doing up there. And what do you have up there? You have a 13th clown. That's all you have up there. That's everybody's just shitty assholes on the internet. Nobody's the Robin Hood. Nobody's the Robin Hood. It's all just what do you call it? Like a smorgasbord of ideas. I mean, what do they call that thing? Like the from philosophy, the marketplace of ideas. Yeah, I mean, and nobody's the Robin Hood of assholes. You're all just assholes. You know, you're the 13th asshole. That's what Colby Reddish is showing up to be, a Robin Hood of assholes against Jake. Nope, you're the 13th asshole, Colby.
Well, and obviously, what you're about to do is explain how we're different, right? Because we're different, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We're like
Very.
I mean, clearly we're the good guys.
We are different. We're the ones who say that we're the assholes.
Yeah. Well, no, we're different in one other critical way. We're not asking for money.
No, yeah, we don't ask for money. We aren't grifting, and we announced it from the start. We're assholes.
Yeah, we are very, very intentionally not asking for money.
Fuck, man, the asking for money thing is getting insane. Like, not just with YouTube and shit like that, but I think I showed it to you guys. There's this woman that used to work with me and quit, and she, like, I'm not even kidding. It's a Christmas thing. She posted on her Facebook, like, oh, I did this fun Secret Santa thing last year, and you never know who's feeling generous and wants to be Secret Santa. So post your Venmo and on your wall and see what Secret Santas do. It's such a fun giving thing to do. And she just posted her Venmo. She's just asking for money. What do you mean it's a fun giving thing? It's a fun giving thing for you to do. I mean, I'm not going to do it. I'm the one that gets.
She's gifting to you the opportunity to give to her. That's very nice of her.
I mean, I saw another lady putting out, like, would I be the asshole if for my graduation party I got a gift registry or something like that? Or like, there's so many people getting gift registries for the stupidest things. I didn't even like doing that when I was getting married. That felt weird. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty normal, I guess.
It's like tipping at counter checkout restaurants, but I always feel guilty like I got to do it. So.
Yeah, no, I just did that last week where it's like, because, you know, I walk up to the counter and like a restaurant I hadn't been to before, and it has an option for a tip. I'm like, well, if the option's there, then I guess I should tip. And then it's like, oh, I walk up and get my food. I bust my own dishes. Like, what the fuck? I'm a sucker. Why'd I do that?
No, see, that's why I'm the asshole of Robin Hood, or the Robin Hood of asshole. I did that for the first couple times I saw it, and I was like, no, this is fucking dumb. There's a couple habits I've changed in this realm. One, it's like the barista flips the thing around, and I get the real assholes are the ones that do it for you, and they're like, would you like to leave a tip or whatever? No. And I just say it now. Or when I go to Taco Bell and they're like, would you like to round up to the nearest dollar to donate to our bullshit? And I just, no.
That's the thing is, like, the liquor stores here now is the first thing they did after I left is they've got the roundup to help the homeless. And every time I've gone back in there and they're like, would you like to round up to help the homeless? I'm like, no, the homeless help themselves to my car once a week. That I'm helping. They sleep in my car. They shit in my stairwell. I'm already helping.
You know the funny thing about the changing argument about the whole homeless thing is hilarious, because it used to be like the angry conservatives would be like, I won't give them money. They'll just spend it on booze and drugs. And the lefties used to be like, no, you don't know that. They'll spend it on food, all this shit. And now they're just like, yeah, and it's none of your business.
Yeah.
I've had so many arguments. I've had so many arguments with people who are just perplexed that would bother me, that money I'm giving to a guy to help sustain him might go to fuel a destructive drug habit. They're like, it's not your money anymore. It's none of your business. It's like, I could have given it to somebody who would have bought food. That's what I want. I wanted to do a good thing with my money, but instead I'm doing a bad thing and buying a guy heroin.
Steve wants money to help promote his comics. We should put his comics up here more often.
There's a lot of kettle logic with the way people talk about homeless.
Oh yeah.
Charles says, anyone else losing track of how many times Maven announces she's leaving the Exmo influencer grift, only to pop up adminning the Most Stories live chat. Yeah, not only that, she was partially involved in, I guess, getting Jonathan censored again or she was just answering for that. But she's all over the Mormon Stories Facebook board, censoring that thing still.
That was I'm
You're
like
still being longhoused, folks.
Yeah, I'm like 1,000% certain that was just like a save face thing that Bill Reel and RFM allowed her to do. Like, because she made it sound like she's leaving voluntary to just do full-time activism. And then she released like 3 dog shit phone videos on some just raving about how men want to control women's bodies. And she's still the mod literally everywhere else except for Bill Reel's channel. Like, she still moderates all the fucking Facebook groups, every goddamn big ex-Mormon podcast. So
And Shirley has all the time in the world to do it.
Yeah, she's not stepping back. She was stepped back.
No.
I'm not afraid to bring anyone on.
It looks like he's grabbing his holster right there.
I know.
I'm not afraid. I'm just too good.
I'm not afraid. I just have a bunch of stipulations that are downright impossible for you to have any general disagreements with me that I would put me in a tough spot.
Why didn't you answer our emails, John?
Yeah. Oh yeah, like I was like, you know how what's his bucket? James Randi had the clock of how many days had passed since was it Susan Brown? It was a psychic, that accepted his $1 million challenge. And so he had a clock of how long it's been since she accepted the challenge and hasn't referred to it. Like, we need to do a clock for how long. And it's basically how long our show has existed. How long has it been since John DeLynn said he wanted to talk to critics, conservative critics? And like, it keeps coming up, and we're like, waiting. Because those Luke brothers don't count, or whatever they were.
The Hall brothers. Yeah, no, I think that's why I love Troy's comments so much, just because he like perfectly channels the cheekiness of James Randi. James Randi was so good at that. He like just making people look stupid without just telling them they're stupid.
What did Troy say?
It's just anytime he comments on something, I know
yeah.
that there's some catty meaning behind it, and I always laugh.
Well, I mean, that brings us around to Troy and
there was
people who've talked with Jacob, Jonathan Streeter. Like, he's not a boogeyman monster. Just not. He's not tough and scary and whatever. And you guys have turned him into Voldemort. Do not the name who shall not be named.
No, so Jacob recently posted something in Thoughtful Saints, and it was just saying, like, you can't trust somebody to prophesy. Don't trust anybody to prophesy unless they've given you sufficient evidence to trust them to prophesy, or something like that. And Troy just commented, I'm commenting simply to tell you that I agree with you.
Oh, hey, wait. That happened, right? According to Troy and Jacob.
They've already had their discussion.
It's in the can.
It's in the can, and it'll be coming out, I guess, still manning what atheist morality is, which I think was kind of close to what their first discussion was, but maybe they're just being more specific about it. I guess Jacob's been going ham on Twitter this week, doing, I guess, the opposite of what Flip's general advice to the religious is, which is just say it's faith, and him saying, no, we are going to logic this and only logic this, and we're going to say some stuff's mythology and some isn't, and start bringing up all sorts like fallacies and the contradictions of Aristotle and like the non-contradicting middle and law of identity and all that type of stuff. And it just has been a Twitter storm, I guess, because he's telling them that their faith needs to be rationality based and not just faith based, and faith based is stupid.
Yeah, I don't open up Twitter very often, but last time I did, I just saw this big thing where he's talking about how there's absolutely no proof of a worldwide flood. And I was like, yeah. But wait a minute, and then I go through all of his tweets, and I was like, what are you? These are like atheist arguments, but just against kind of selective things. It feels like.
I wonder, like, yeah, I'm kind of curious how, like, how does he actually pick and choose which parts of the religion he's going to accept as myth and which aren't? And I'm kind of curious about, like, so like, because I know he's anti-evolution, but I mean,
I don't know that he is.
Oh, I mean, Hayden is.
I'm sure Hayden is. I think Hayden is probably, his opinions are probably the dumbest possible, like, apologetic opinions ever. But I don't know, because with Mormonism it's kind of difficult because there has to be a real Adam and Eve in Mormonism. You know what I mean? Like, they're actual angels that actually existed within Mormonism. And you could kind of explain around it with some more vague branches of Christianity or whatever.
So here's
And
stuff like
there has to
this.
be a Moroni too.
A religion that does not require the sacrifice of all things never has the power sufficient to produce the faith necessary unto life and salvation. That includes sacrificing the rational man for faith. And then Jacob says, translation, turn off your brain, call that faith, claim it as a virtue. And so there's just a bunch of stuff like this. There's Stacker, the exact peak of the bell curve of midwintery. He's leaving the church is never about hatred or being offended or being swayed by the devil. The reasons are spiritual, religious, intellectual, historical, and emotional. Imagine unironically saying it's never about hatred or being offended or evil influences. Yes. Like that Stacker guy, like, shut up. Like, of course people do it that way sometimes. Stop like giving these great big definitive, like you're forming a new religion type thing, like it's all only for integrity. No, just be honest. Sometimes it's because people want to fuck off. Oh God. Why is that so hard? Why is that so hard for ex-Mormons? Like, why is it so hard just to grant them a couple of things? Because some people left for total integrity? Sure. Like, yeah, yep. Why are you phone so much lately? I'm fighting multi-front meme war with the Antichrist. Show some respect. Yeah, see, here's just more of it. People, it just, I guess it was just lighting off all week of Jacob saying that you should have a rational base, thoughtful faith, and not just go off the faith thing. And Flip always says, do yourself a favor and just call it faith. But,
well, the other thing is, like, I wish I could find it. I wish I could have AI go through and, like, hey, listen to everything that Jacob said, because I know for a fact I remember, but like, I had my phone, I couldn't, like, I don't know, I tried to cut it or whatever, but I didn't have a chance. But he was on some show talking, and I heard him say the words, "I'm a presuppositionalist," which he said after he talked to me and said, "I'm not a presuppositionalist." So I know for a fact he'll happily play both sides of that, depending on who his audience is.
Forrest says he's on his way to the atheism. Say Jacob, Akimoto Akira says Jacob is a quandary. Anyway, this is a Bridger, other people calling out Bridger and him, just all over that thing, saying, okay, now you guys define for us basically the question Flip always has. You guys tell us when it's arbitrary, when it's not. You guys tell us when it's myth and when it's historical. Like, can we flesh this out? And I don't know that will be answered, but I don't know. I think when he gets in those realms, just like when Flip says, do yourself a favor and call it that, and you start pulling out like the truth claim stuff and getting into the details of that. Now you're out in the scary waters. Like I've said before, like I've given Jacob, I think Jacob's able to twist up people in morality debates, like especially Bill Real. I bet you he'd be able to twist up. I doubt he twisted up Troy. We'll see it, but Troy and him probably just got along in the discussion. But he'd probably twist up Colby Reddish, and that he'd probably twist up RFM. But then when it gets into the truth claim end of stuff, that's where it's not too fun to go, right?
You really think he could twist up Bill Real?
I think he did.
Yeah.
No way, dude. Do you remember his IQ?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, he's
yeah.
got a 147 IQ. There's no possible way.
I didn't think about that. But I mean, Bill Real, Jacob said it was a gish gal, but Bill Real twisted him up when it got to the truth claim stuff. Like I thought that was kind of an even matchup, type.
Yeah.
When you saw all of it.
Well, that's the thing is because I mean when that thing is because where Bill Real fell into the trap is that he thinks that he has an objective basis for morality. And because that's the thing is like when Jacob tries to bring me in that trap, I'm like, my answer is like, I don't, and neither do you, because no one does, right? Like as long as I don't know when I talked to Hayden and talked to Jacob, I did my thing that I always do. I'm like, I'm going to tell you my secret strategy for never losing one of these arguments. Don't pretend to know things you don't know, and as long as you do that, you can't lose. You might not win, but you for sure won't lose. And so when somebody asks you, do you have an objective basis for reality? The only answer is, I don't know. I don't think so, but no one else does either. But that's where Bill Real will get tripped up. And I think where most atheistic types do, because they, like everybody, like Jacob, want to pretend like they've got it figured out somehow. It's like, no, you don't. No one does.
Well, we saw Troy kind of list out like a list of Enlightenment thinkers, and all that stuff's been blowing up too on the right wing. But
you can get close, but you can't ever pin it down.
Well, I'm sure he went to Hume, and then he went to like Hume. Hume definitely kind of draws on evolutionary feelings. He draws on probably even before. Was that before or after Darwin? But Hume was already just kind of drawn like what we've evolved into.
Yeah, that's like I think that what is it? Most good, whatever it is. Like I think that gets you an awful close, but it's not perfect. Yeah. I think it gets you as close as anybody can get. Like I think that's the best anybody can reasonably do.
I don't know if people would have seen it. It's probably too small, but that brings us to it's way too small. I don't know how to make that bigger. That's the post one of the posts that got removed from Mormon Stories by good old Lynn that Jonathan made this week about the French postmodernists. And Jacob said that he thinks the French postmodernists are brilliant. And it's just, they're the ones who would, it's how far you would go with stuff if you were an atheist. Like they're the honest atheists, which I don't think is true. And I think Troy, I think he made that post before Troy talked with him, because I don't think just because you're an atheist, you have to go the French postmodernist route at all. But like I said to him on these posts or to everybody, he's like, there's some stuff the postmodernists are right about. I just don't agree that it's all the way down. Like they constantly draw it out to me. But I don't know if I can read that. We can't pull it up for. This got deleted off of Mormon Stories. And then Jonathan was trying to ask, why did that get deleted? And it turned out it was John DeLynn himself who deleted it.
And John was apparently perfectly ready to throw his admins under the bus for that.
Yeah,
reading between the lines, but that's what it sure seems like. Because according to our source, John was like, well, who told you that? Well, the other admins did. Who do you think?
Do you want me to read the whole thing? I got it up.
You got it? Yeah.
Oh, you got it on big? Yeah.
So this is what all that tiny writing says. I don't know how to zoom it in right there.
Yeah. So when you step out of the shadow of religion, it can feel like you have finally reached the sunshine. Only clear thinking, rationality, and evidence-based living for me from now on. One might optimistically proclaim while sipping a mug of coffee and enjoying the sin that is no more. And then you start to calibrate yourself to the world outside of religious constraints. I don't need religion to be good. I can be a good person without Sky Daddy telling me what to do. Yes, this is true. You don't need Sky Daddy to tell you what is good and bad. There will be plenty of other humans and with their own notions of the foundation. Oh, you got it up.
Yeah, it's just on the wider screen, but go ahead.
That's easier for me. The notions of the foundation of morality outside of religion to do that for you. It won't come in a sermon, but it might come when you witness someone else trip up and fall afoul of the new orthodoxy. The mass of people inculcated in the correct moral norms will convict them of their sin and extract confession and repentance no less effectively than the priestly class. Our social existence comes with such boundary maintenance. But where do these new moral sentiments come from? As you start on a journey outside of religious moral frameworks, you should become familiar with the philosophical foundation of the dominant moral framework which will step in to take its place. Such moral frameworks come adorned in sophisticated terms like anti-racism, queer theory, post-colonialism, and social justice, but have at their core a new set of quasi-religious principles that are postmodernism. Thou shalt question all absolute truths, for none are universal. Thou shalt embrace multiple perspectives, for every truth is bound by its context. Thou shalt deconstruct authority and tradition, for they are constructs of power. Thou shalt celebrate difference and diversity, for all identities are valid. Thou shalt deny the supremacy of any single worldview, for all narratives are created equal. Thou shalt reject objectivity, for all knowledge is mediated by interpretation. Thou shalt honor ambiguity, for certainty is a form of tyranny. Thou shalt validate lived experiences, for personal stories carry truth. Thou shalt blur the lines between fact and fiction, for all reality is a construct. Thou shalt hold irony sacred, for sincerity can be oppressive. Some people have come to the notion that without God to say what is real and good, then to assert one thing to be real or good is a form of unjustified tyranny over other potentiality. It's all well and good when trying to make your quirky niece feel welcomed at dinner, but you might be surprised to what extremes it could be taken. There's some stupid slippery slope fallacy crap there, Streeter. No one is trying to justify the sort of fear-mongering stuff you're implying. Good. That's a good impulse. Start there, then draw a line at some extreme that you don't think should be crossed. Then try to justify it without invoking God or betraying the postmodern commandments listed above. What is the rationale that you base your objection to some gone too far immorality on? You will inevitably have to take a stand somewhere, and in so doing, declare yourself against the cynical postmodern nihilistic void. These are some things that are important to work out on the journey outside of the religious matrix. Religionists will say the smartest thing Satan ever did was to convince you that he doesn't exist. That's all well and good when you lose your belief in Satan, but it doesn't solve the problem of finding livable moral framework when you are convinced that God doesn't exist. And there are plenty of people who have tried to fill that role.
And there we got Leotard, Foucault, and Derrida. He also had where was it? This one removed that was asking. He put this on Mormon Stories. What do you all think of the exchanges between John Lynn and Jacob Hansen? Are there some ways to Mormon that are not platformable? Bill Rill has tried to before with mixed feelings. Should Mormon Stories make room for Jacob Hansen's way to Mormon, even to give it a hearing? Postmodernists are the true skeptics. That's what Forrest heard today.
I mean, I guess they're just skeptical of everything.
Power.
Well, they say they're skeptical of everything, but then hold
except
really
for their overarching claims.
Except for justifying kitty diddling. That's the only objective truth for Michel Foucault.
Who's to say what's to say, man? Who's to say what's to say? Jonathan got splained by Maven on that one. Should we pull the splain? Here's Maven splaining that one. Can you read that one?
Yeah.
Speaking of splaining, they were just talking football today, and they brought on Samantha Shelley to talk football.
That's
I've never
hilarious.
felt more splained than getting splained football by a European chick.
It's interesting to me how often people respond to subjects and ideas they either can't understand or don't want to understand by projecting them as religious dogma. Flat earthers will call those who understand the earth as a sphere globalist.
That's not what globalist means, Maven. That's not.
What word they use? They use a word though, don't they?
They'll say like globe heads sometimes or globies,
but not globalist.
Yeah.
And turn knowledge based on empirical evidence into a belief in globalism, the same way biologically illiterate creationists portray understanding of one of the most heavily supported theories of science as a mere belief in evolutionism, transgenderism, wokeism, scientism, etc. Next step is to call experts and educators of said subjects as priests. Okay, I'll call them priests.
Yeah.
Everything's degrees, man. It's like that Supreme Court judgment. You don't know it until you see it. And I don't know like how else to say it. Because I mean, I think there are experts out there, and I think there are fake experts out there. Like the ones pushing the academic papers about olfactory oppression.
Oh, God.
About hydrosexuality.
Hydrosexuality, brine shrimp, marrying brine shrimp in
Queer
the Great
death
Salt
studies.
Lake.
I learned about queer. I didn't learn about. I learned there existed a thing called queer death studies, and it's somehow related to brine shrimp.
Yeah, well, we brought it up last week, and we did not realize that it was actually a Salt Lake thing. We didn't realize it was so close to home.
Oh,
You know,
I was at Westminster College yesterday for Doodlepalooza 2024. We were talking to a friend.
That's our friend.
like-
who,
His music. And like while we're in there, like because another friend of mine, like we're talking about the craziness, and I'm like, well, did you hear about this brine shrimp thing? He's like, what? And I read the abstract, and they're all just laughing, and then somebody's like, what? Where did that come from? I'm like, I don't know. I guess somewhere back. Oh my God, it's this very school.
yeah.
Like, oh, whoops. Because the whole thing is like I was talking right next to a microphone that was live broadcasting everything to YouTube. So I actually went back and checked, and I don't think it picked me up. Like it just like you can hear voices, and I think I can pick my voice out, but you can't understand anything I'm saying. But for a moment, I'm like, oh dear.
Here's Colin Wright. He's got his swipe right thing in the Reality Last Stand, where it has some of the best stuff about trans issues in biology on the internet. And he found this in Nature magazine, I think it was called. And these guys are also PhDs from the very school that Flip was listening to music in last night. Last night, I posted an insane academic paper titled "Loving the Brine Shrimp: Exploring Queer Feminist Blue Post-Humanities to..." Why is the word blue in there? Blue Post-Humanities to Reimagine the America's Dead Sea. That paper included a section near the end where the author claimed via performance art to challenge the dominant scientific, industrial, and cultural use of brine shrimp by responding to them as lovable objects. They made a video of making love to the lake. So,
You can look more. They're beautiful.
what's that?
I think that like these super postmodernists, they saw that a lot of academic fields had a lot of descriptors in them, but like some of them are like necessary descriptors, things like, I don't know, like I'm working on 16th century agrarianism or some shit like that. And so they're like, oh, it sounds really smart. So we just have to add as many descriptors to our, that's why they got to put blue in there. I don't know.
Was that you're theorizing where blue comes from?
I'm theorizing where like all of it comes because they add things in that don't really make, and it works with intersectionality because all of it is linked and rooted in oppression and shit like that. So it can't ever just be queer theory. It's always like feminist queer leanings of blue bullshit or something.
But also, it's really convenient for them because when we go like, what the hell is that? They can go, you don't know because you aren't a scholar, Like I bet you in their classroom, they're throwing the word around and they've developed some kind of whole meaning around it. And yeah, when we go, what are you talking about? They can just go, ha, see, this is why you need me to explain these things.
That actually comes up with the other paper that we're going to talk about, which is this one. The gal, I mean, this thing had like, it's more than this that I have posted here. This thing had like 80 million views on it this week. And it's this gal from Cambridge bragging that she got her PhD dissertation done, and with no corrections. And the whole entire paper is about this thesis. This thesis studies how literature registers the importance of olfactory discourse, the language of smell, and the olfactory imagination it creates in structuring our social world. And of course, like this guy right here is actually another PhD trying to defend it. It's very critical and important work, and it's so good that 80 million people saw it because it's got such deep thoughts. Anyway, back to
Damn, bro, save some pussy for the rest of us.
you got to listen to the Spiral Jetty talk, man. Did you hear that?
What? No. What was that one?
The Spiral Jetty talks in the video.
Oh, I didn't
God.
see that. I know you mentioned it, but I didn't watch the video.
Why is it not playing now? Where, yeah.
Shoreline,
There's the Spiral Jetty talking right there.
witnessing the ongoing environmental change in the Great Salt Lake.
I'll back it up a little more. That's the Spiral. That's the Spiral Jetty's voice. The Spiral Jetty is talking to these women who are about to marry the brine shrimp for academia.
Brine shrimp.
What the fuck? Okay, tell me that
I
the
am the
humanities
Spiral
isn't
Jetty.
church. This is church.
I am the Spiral Jetty. What's that? Yeah, it's
I
church.
just- yeah, like okay, this is a religious rite. What else could
No,
it be?
no. Maven just said that that's what you guys do. You guys do that. You're calling experts religious. Shut up. These are experts. Oh, by the way, somebody else added on the
Mystery Science
yeah,
the
Theater.
Mystery
yeah.
Science Theater people down at the bottom.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I am the Spiral Jetty. I've lived in this place since 1970, witnessing the ongoing environmental change in the Great Salt Lake. Over the past 50 years, my shape and status has been constantly transforming. Some decades under the water, some above the water. Now you can see my naked basalt rocks, vulnerable to the ongoing droughts.
I'm thinking about Sam
dry.
Rockwell's character in Gentleman Bronco.
Yeah, yeast. This yeast is pretty good. I was just
Oh
watching.
no, surveillance those. I
Have
hate
you seen-
those.
This
Have you seen
sounds
Gentleman Bronco?
no.
Oh,
I
you
haven't.
gotta watch.
It's all
Gentleman
it's
Bronco.
all filmed out at what's the Antelope Island in Salt
Hey
Lake. up
man,
there.
you had me at Sam Rockwell. So.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell's in it, and there's it's got Jermaine from
Jermaine Clement.
Flight of the Conchords
It's got
and
what's her bucket from
Coolidge, Jennifer Coolidge.
Jennifer Coolidge. It's
It's
good.
hilarious, and it's this kid who like writes sci-fi books that are like crappy sci-fi books, and then he gets his sci-fi books stolen by the top sci-fi author, and the whole thing's about Antelope Island, or I guess they're using it as an alien space. As a guy goes out and eats yeast and bounces around. It's so goofy. But
Why does this spiral thing's voice sound like it's coming through like a brick phone, like a Nokia brick phone?
Thirsty and
yeah,
concerned.
that's not the whole thing. And so then later they like start marrying the brine shrimp here.
Oh, yes,
Yes, we are.
Justina and Evelina.
Are you ready to make vows to the brine shrimp? Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
What the
Does
hell?
anyone here object to this wedding between
I
us
do.
humans and the brine shrimp?
Yeah.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
You guys really aren't
Human,
doing a whole lot of favor to the
human.
whole slippery slope
Wait a
argument.
second, like,
Carry
hey,
with
that's the
me a
whole like
byproduct.
classic patriarchal Mormon or marriage thing. Like,
Yeah,
why would you
it's-
guys prop that up? That whole idea that like if it's now or never, otherwise the man owns this woman forever unless you speak up.
Yeah.
See objection from your art uncle Newton Harrison. He says, but did you ask for consent from the brine shrimp?
Oh my god!
Yay.
Let's ask them.
Oh, Uncle Newton.
Let's ask them.
We will ask the brine shrimp.
Brine shrimp. Brine shrimp.
They're doing all this ritual stuff, and it sounds like temple stuff.
I
It all
know.
does.
This is
All
what I
right.
imagine a live session probably sounded like.
Shrimp.
To marry us.
Live sessions were 90-year-olds going way slower than this.
I will ask
Like, oh my God, we're going to be here 7 hours.
Humans?
Do we have your consent to marry you?
Listen.
They're asking for consent from the brine shrimp. and they think that they know what the shrimp are gonna
I hear
say.
yes.
I hear yes.
I don't hear no.
I don't hear no. That's the path, guys.
That's dead grape
Ooh.
right there. Well, I didn't hear a no.
I don't hear no.
This brine shrimp gonna get lucky tonight.
Squeal
Anyway,
like a pig, shrimpy. Squeal like a pig.
They're all wearing white. Are these brine shrimp virgins?
I guess
Like,
so.
no, hey, you're upholding more patriarchal standards. Like, what's
You're
the
also
matter?
not doing a whole
You
lot of
even
favors to
understand
that.
queer feminism.
Well, it's the classic anti-gay marriage argument of like, what's next? We gonna be marrying brine shrimp?
Yeah, no, yeah, like
Yes,
you're
we
absolutely
are.
right. I can go all the way
Yes.
back to the '90s, listening to Rush Limbaugh, going like, "Hey, they're gonna end up marrying animals in the next thing." And like, oh, and like I remember, all the way back,
shut
like,
up.
oh, you don't understand. It's just like, nope, he was absolutely right. We're marrying the shrimp now. Good job, feminism.
So this is some of the other work of those ladies right there. You can see that. What does she say?
Oh man,
Nature is your lover, not your mother. Meet ecosexual pioneer in The Guardian. She wrote, she's Dr. Sprinkles, and she wrote, spectacular sex, make your own love life with one of the world's great sex experts. I guess there's great sex to be had with brine shrimp.
So I, as soon as I saw this story, I was gonna send it to one of my friends that loves watching this shit, but then I know he would just zoom in on the name Steinberg and send it back to me and say, "See,
Yeah, the person saw this. Yep. Yeah. Let's see here. This says, "Here come the ecosexuals," and of course, it's all subsidized by the universities around. It's just high art, and you got to be smart to get it. You got to be smart to get it.
What do you think that the dudes in this are like? They're just like going along with it's like the male feminist cuttlefish that are going along with it for, pussy. And like, so we ecosexuals, huh? Yeah, I'm totally into that. I gotta stick my dick in a brine shrimp. I still gotta stick my dick in you, right? That's what's gonna happen, right?
I mean, you pulled Curtis Yarvin, like just this week, this is the guy who's like the boogeyman of the right now, who's like I guess got JD Vance's in different people's ears, Peter Thiel and all that stuff, because he like talks about the monarchy type stuff. But he got to question an eco psycho dude, a guy who just like was completely, if you listen to this whole podcast, the guy's just freaking out about the world dying. And so he got to question him a little bit here. And I liked his line of questioning here.
We're still on the brine shrimp.
Still shrimping away.
Remove, add to stage. There you go.
And I think we discussed this a little in our text exchange. It was about Maslow's pyramid of needs. And you, of course, are a burner.
Why?
There are many beliefs that we almost all share today that someone from almost any period in history would just find just not only bizarre, but just like self-evidently insane. And so one of the things that basically, I think very strongly, and I think we discussed this a little in our text exchange, it was about Maslow's pyramid of needs. And you, of course, are a burner. You've been to Burning Man several times. And
18 times I went to that place.
18 times, very powerful. And I heard this was the first year they didn't sell out of tickets. So maybe there's some kind of decline. The Zoomers laugh at my reverence for Burning Man. I'm very, I can't help but be impressed by the Church of Burning Man, right? It's an amazing phenomenon. And the thing is, basically, Burning Man is a festival for people at the top of the pyramid of Maslow's pyramid of needs. They are all going there for self-actualization. They are not going there because they are thirsty. They're not going there because they are hungry or cold. They will be all of these things out on the fucking playa, right? But that's okay because it's a place where not only are they there for self-actualization, everyone else there is there for self-actualization because no one would frankly go to this godforsaken place for any other reason. And if you imagine holding Burning Man in Fort Lauderdale, or even on, say, Jeffrey Epstein's island, someplace nice, you quickly see why it's absolutely necessary for, you know, Burning Man to be in the Black Rock Desert, which is, let's face it, a shithole. Although, frankly, you know, one knows if you ever want to tease Elon Musk or Elon supporters, just tell them that if Mars was on Earth, it would be by far the worst place on Earth. And it would be worse than Camden, New Jersey. And certainly worse than the Black Rock Desert. But the thing is, when you go to Burning Man, you notice a couple of things. One is that, again, all of these people are at the top of Maslow's pyramid of needs. And for me, that's really what defines an aristocrat and an aristocracy. If you look, for example, if you go back even to early communism, leftism has always been an aristocratic movement, in my view. There was never an idyllic period when it came up from the bottom. It always comes down from the top. And so you see, for example, Trotsky writing about the new Soviet man. And he's basically like, he has this famous passage where he's like, you know, ordinary humans will rise to the level of a Newton or an Einstein, and above those peaks, new heights will rise, right? Incredible, right? And then you look at the fucking Soviet Union and you're like, wow, that was a shit show, you know? And you know, this sort of comes from this basically, like, ultimately the kind of the dream of the 20th century noble is that the way we sort of heal the world is to make everyone into nobles like us. And so this feeling of like, we are going to make, and I remember believing this so strongly as a kid. I believe that through education, we could make the planet into a world of like Burning Man dwelling nobles. And then you go to Burning Man, and how's the racial diversity at Burning Man, Daniel? Is it strong? Is it not so strong? How would you compare it to the average Klan rally? You know, especially these days, the Klan is pretty debased. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw, you know, more, and what's astounding, given the proximity to Silicon Valley, is that you might say the demographics of Burning Man are the same as the demographics of Google, but it's really not so, because basically you'll see a lot more Chinese and Indian people at Google than at Burning Man. At Burning Man, it's basically like frighteningly white, you know, and so you're just like, that's like, you know, really something. And then you're just like, I had this, in any case, what you're looking at Burning Man, and I think if you were to take a like 14th century Italian noble in his like beautiful brocade coat and with his rapier and whatever, reader of Castiglione's, you know, the courtier, I guess 15th century, even 16th century, he would recognize the burners, often with also their very own elaborate costumes. He would recognize the burners as fellow aristocrats. You know, Castiglione would say, well, this is very fucked up and very weird, but these men are as dedicated to and women are as dedicated to self-perfection as the courtiers of ancient Italy.
Yeah, it's the noble class, man. That's all it is. And that's usually kind of like goes in line with like that thing of like saying, they threaten our democracy and change it to our bureaucracy. I saw somebody else kind of like pointing out that like the way the left nowadays views what democracy actually is the power of the institutions, not like the power of the vote. You know, so it's like these institutions that have these people in it, and they're also threatened that they're going to be attacked and disassembled by these people. It's like, you're threatening our democracy. Like, no, you aren't. That got voted in. That's democracy. No, that's not democracy. Democracies, those institutions and the aristocrats who run it, who've been through our little rituals and shibboleths of eco brine shrimp marrying and olfactory smelling academia. You know, that paper, man, that olfactory paper. I don't know if there's like much to read on it, but did you guys read that one at all?
No, I heard some people. I had some commentary on it, but it is funny because like there is definitely an olfactory connection with the elites in that they do love the smell of their own farts. That lady is really doing all the whole time. She's sniffing her farts and going, "White people are racist."
Yeah,
while taking big quaffs from a burgundy glass of fart.
I'll have this TikToker present it here.
What you have to do to write like a modern academic is just take two things for granted, use big words, and pick a very niche topic. The two things that you pick for granted is that there is no such thing as objective truth, only truth that we socially construct. And then the second thing is that everything should be looked at through the lens of systemic power and oppression. Now apply both of those things to your very niche topic. In this case, it's olfactory ethics, the politics of smell in modern and contemporary play. and then use a bunch of big words. And now you have your abstract. The broad aim of this thesis is to offer an intersectional and wide-ranging study of olfactory oppression by establishing the underlying logistics that facilitate smell's application in creating and subverting gender, class, sexual, racial, and species power structures. $100,000 in 10 years of studying to use 50-cent words to tell me through critical literary analysis how pigs don't just smell worse. We actually create that standard as a means of oppressing them as a lower species. We actually create power structures between us and other groups of people using smell. It's not the case that certain groups of people defecate in the street willingly and never use deodorant, or even that smells can convey to you important information about people that you should know in order to judge them correctly. No, these are socially constructed truths. And you should trust me because I'm verified by the same academic institutions that published several of James Lindsay's grievance study papers, because they didn't realize that a paper discussing how dog parks perpetuate grape culture was actually a joke. You ever meet a girl show?
Yeah, but
it's weird that these people are also like big into like evolution, right? Like, because it makes evolutionary sense that we think that shit stinks, right? Because you shouldn't eat things that smell putrid because they're bad for you. Like we evolved that ability, and I bet this lady would call you an idiot if you were like, I don't believe in evolution, but like she doesn't either.
Yeah, well, we talked about the old horseshoe theory around here. I don't know like how true it is not, but the horseshoe theory is like the very far left and the very far right are closer to each other than the middle because they're on the other side of the horseshoe. And James Lindsay did a hoax paper on the Christian Nationalist right this week, and he got them to, in the American Reformer, publish a portion of the Communist Manifesto by changing some of the words in it. But it's got quite a few people upset, and he's even been at it with Tim Pool. Tim Pool is not impressed with it, and Cernovich isn't impressed with it. There's a lot of people who aren't so happy about this one, and they don't think it's as fair as a takedown or something like that. Part of it is because the paper or the magazine that he took down has about 1/1,000,000th of the social cachets of those other places that are completely subsidized by universities and pumped out and put through libraries and all that sort of stuff. And this is just some small Christian nationalist paper that put it out there. But he got it hoaxed. He put his name as Karl Marxen, and they didn't catch that.
That's funny.
I didn't know that part. That's priceless.
Yeah. And you could say like some of the people aren't impressed with it because he's like, one of the things that James Lindsay's not impressed with or doesn't like is that people say communists have some good critiques but bad receipts or bad answers for those critiques. But he doesn't like that they even say that they have good critiques at all. He thinks that's an indication that you might be a woke righty. And I don't know if I agree with that so much. Not that I think that Marx's critiques are the greatest critiques, but because they also didn't originate those critiques. Like a lot of some other people like talked about those critiques and this is the same deal. I think maybe the angle the Marxist take is a little bit wonky, but it doesn't mean like the thing's not there. Like the concept of reification, that you just become what your job is and that's all that you matter to the world and that sort of deal.
I'm pretty sure that I heard James Lindsay say that many of Marx's critiques looking backward were good.
I swear he has
forward. Yeah, it was looking forward where he gets all fucked. But looking backward, he made some points. But that's not hard to do.
Well, yeah, it's not that impressive to come up with the critiques because some of them are kind of obvious. They're even by the kids who killed the CEO or they're cheering what that CEO got murdered today. Like just some of those critiques are, well, you know, the money can tend to seem like the juggernaut of the money doesn't have like a soul behind it and it doesn't care about the humans. It'll just trample over them to get more money. People keep talking about how that CEO of United Healthcare got murdered and all sorts of people are cheering it on TikTok, but they still had the meeting at 8:00. the guy's job is already posted. It's already posted to be filled.
Of course it is. Like, how long are they supposed to wait? Like,
Yeah.
like shit, we need a CEO, but we got to
There's
wait.
There's not a mourning period.
Well, I mean,
Like
they can have a
he
mourning
dies.
period, but there's not a. I don't know.
I know they said they had the meeting at 8, but I'm sure that my company would have the meeting still at 8 to say, "Hey, boss just got shot. We need to do this and this and this to deal with boss just getting shot." It probably changed the minutes of the meeting. They probably just didn't carry on with that meeting of saying like, "Okay, well, the profits are up. Good news, good news." They probably immediately went into talking about what to do about that situation.
There's this like there's a few CEOs that they do nothing ever, right? And that you could just plop another guy in his chair and he'd be fine. He's just the king of the corporation, so he doesn't have anything he needs to be good at or do, so he's easily replaceable. You got to post that right away because it's probably difficult to replace him.
Yeah, I would say so too.
I don't that story. What is up with that?
Okay, I'm gonna get conspiratorial. If the killer doesn't get caught soon, it was fake.
Really?
Well, so here's the thing. It's difficult because if you are a radical revolutionary and you do something like this, you want to make it look like a radical revolutionary did it. And if you're like, I don't know, some weird shitty, I don't know if it's some weird political thing or whatever, you would probably also want to make it look like a radical revolutionary did this. So, but I don't know. I'm like, how did I not find him? They got him on camera so many places. He was pretty stupid though. Like he did a couple stupid things.
He showed his face like at a Starbucks or something like that.
Well, he went to his Starbucks and bought
I
it.
got there. I've shared a quartering article. Oh my god!
Now we have to buy the coffee.
Yeah, there's his face right there.
Yeah, well, he bought a Starbucks and then he just like threw it in a trash can. So that's pretty clumsy. Yeah, he just threw that in a bottle of Gatorade. Just threw him in the trash can as he went out. So they presumably have his DNA and fingerprints now.
Yeah, so he also, left those things with the screen. How is it? Here it is. You see that?
Yeah.
I guess it said deny, defend, oppose, and people think it's related to a book that was criticizing that that organization called Delay, Deny, Defend all the way back when.
I don't know anything about any of that. That's the first I've heard about some book. But somebody's actually made a connection to something that might be an explanation for what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are saying, like, oh, he's probably somebody who got denied health care or something, or his family did, or whatever. But yeah, there's so many possibilities.
Some people think this might be like a more directed, radicalized person who just thinks like, well, this is something that people will think I'm a Robin Hood for doing, and
yeah,
look, here's some
Tim McVeigh.
Here's some typical TikToks of it. Like, hold on.
We're not hearing it.
Really?
Yeah.
Stop sharing. Share screen. Connect this time, you stinking thing. Now?
I hate everything about you. I hate everything about you. You just hey, yeah, excuse me, fucking dorks. Hey, you can't just we're having That's pretty sick, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If my child comes home from school with a magnet with her face on it, with a note that says you have to pay $15 or send the magnets with my child's face on it back to school, I will never be paying the $15, and I will be keeping the magnets with my child's face on it. Thank you.
I don't know what the hell that's about, but how is that late stage capitalism, like the stuff the public schools are doing?
Everything,
Yeah.
everything like stupid charge is late stage capitalism. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's kind of their
It-
version of the devil,
yeah.
the fallen world.
Live service games, late stage capitalism. Microtransactions, late stage capitalism. All of it, late stage capitalism.
That's how that works.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's a bunch of these where like the people are here, and this is one.
Jimothy! Yeah, boss. What on earth is sevoflurane? It's a common medication anesthesiologists use for general anesthesia. Do you have any idea how expensive this is? Yeah, it costs money to keep a patient alive while a surgeon cuts into them. Well, I saw a movie once where a person was given a stick to bite down on while his leg was... Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there. We have to cover general anesthesia. Fine. But I say for how long? What? New rule. If a surgery goes over a designated amount of time, Blue Cross will stop paying for general anesthesia for the rest of the surgery. And who determines how long a surgery should last? I will. You, an insurance executive, will tell an anesthesiologist and surgeon how long a surgery should last. Come on, Jimothy. How hard could it be? Give me a surgery. I'll tell you how long it is. Okay. Kidney transplant. 30 minutes. 30 minutes? Just pop it in. Quadruple cardiac bypass. An hour. Yeah, try 6 hours. Okay, then just do a double bypass and come back later for the rest. You can't honestly expect OR staff to adhere to surgery time based on insurance coverage. We'll make it easy. When a surgery goes over time, the Price is Right loser sound effect will play in the OR. And this all sounds reasonable to you. Jimothy, if you have a better idea how we can make more than $6 billion in profit next year, I'm all ears. Okay, first of all, no company ever needs to make $6 billion. Oh, I'm sorry, Jimothy. That's all the time we have for today.
Like, complaining about modern medicine, like, that's one of the weird things. You know, like, really, you're annoyed that people like survive all kinds of shit that would kill them back in the day.
Yeah, well, it's like I had to get a new heart, and now I'm in debt. And you're like, well, yeah. I mean,
But the creation of that new heart situation cost capital, or a lot of capital, or it never would have existed. It comes from the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know,
I was just talking to at my new job, there's an old guy working there. He's 80. And he was just talking about how he just had his cataracts done. And he talked about how easy it was. It was same day. He went home. It worked great. He can see really great. He was excited to go get the other one done. And then he remembered that he told me about in the 50s when his grandpa got cataract surgery in the 50s. And his grandpa was in the hospital, unable to move his head for 4 weeks. Like, that's in the 1950s, they had cataract surgery, and it was extremely dangerous, and there wasn't a high likelihood of success, and it laid him up for weeks. And now it's an in and out thing, you know. And I remember in the 80s, my grandpa fell and broke his hip and had to get a hip replacement. And it was a 14-hour surgery, and he was laid up for weeks. He was in the hospital for weeks, and then he was laid up for weeks. My mom just got her hip surgery done. It was one day in and out. Like, she's in pain now, and you know, but it's just nothing compared to what it used to be. And then, like, you look at like cancer, the survivability of cancer, just 10 million things. And it's like, yeah, that costs money. But the thing is, like, and it costs a lot, and then it keeps getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and that's a good thing, you know. There's trade-offs and everything, but that's a good thing, you know. This is one of those things that are the rich people, like they don't understand the trade-off, where it's like, thank God for rich people, because like when the new technology comes around and the only way to make it viable is for people to buy it, and the only people who can afford it are the rich, like they are the people who get it going, and then because of them, it becomes affordable for everyone else, like magic. like somehow capitalism works. But what do I know? I didn't go to Maven College.
Some Maple Lake Mountain's asking Forrest, if you're still in chat, are you going to come back to YouTube? Charles says, I think you guys are missing the point. No one is complaining about modern medicine, but about the shitty insurance industry. I actually work with that exact industry place. I work with United, and yeah, they got issues. But
that's true.
But it is also true that if there wasn't like a capital, well, the thing is about the insurance industry is that kind of like thwarts what actual capitalism is supposed to be, right? I mean, it kind of becomes totally cronied up and gets government involved with it, makes everything worse, makes everything more expensive. But at the same time, if there wasn't capital involved in it, there's all sorts of things like probably general anesthesia or heart transplants or things like that. They wouldn't even exist yet, you know? And so it's a weird double-edged sword. But I hate insurance. I hate that companies, I hate me as an HR guy. I hate that I'm involved in people's insurance. I think that is stupid. I think that is really stupid that I'm the one talking to people about what they're getting or not getting for their families.
Another thing's but Canada and the UK are having real problems with wait times. Like just in the last few weeks, in the British newspapers, like I can't remember, it was like in Wales, they talked about that guy called 999. That's their version of 911 because they're fags. And like was having a heart attack and took 2 hours for an ambulance to get there because they just don't have enough, you know. Or like the other thing that I saw, like in the newspaper, they had a picture of the ambulances lined up at the emergency waiting for their turn. You know, there are trade-offs and everything, you know. Like did you experience Brazilian nationalist healthcare when you were on your mission?
I did one time. My companion started throwing up black, so we went actually twice. He started throwing up black, and then we went there, and it wasn't too bad because we were in a small town, so like there wasn't like a wait time we had to worry about, but it was pretty rickety.
Yeah, because
and
like
wild.
the joke in Brazil is like
the other time is when we called.
Like the joke is like the healthcare is free. They'll give you an aspirin and a Band-Aid and send you home, and it costs nothing. It's free, you know. But like, God help you if you need a knee replaced, you know.
Yeah, the other time was when this dude he was clearly drunk and he fell and just cracked his head on the curb, and like nobody was around, and we're like, I guess we should call an ambulance. And so we called the ambulance, and they get there, and there's a dude that's like shorter than me and then a 90-pound woman. And so we had to like help pick him up. I'm like, fuck, man, I don't have medical training or anything like that. I'm not supposed to move this guy, but we had to.
Yeah.
Let's see how he explains it. Explaining.
Okay, here's the thing. I think you're right. This guy's family does deserve some sympathy. His wife probably didn't choose this life that they were leading. His kids certainly didn't. I feel awful for them. But here's why people are having a hard time finding
How do we know
sympathy.
this guy wasn't like, honey, I want to pursue my dream of being a horse trainer? And she's like, no, God damn it. You're going to get a corporate job. I won't live on a horse trainer salary. I insist that you go get a high power career in insurance.
Well, if you wouldn't know it, magically there was a story just about that sort of thing this week in the New York Times about how female hypergamy caused Donald Trump. Maybe we'll pull that up like right after this. But yeah, stop doubting female hypergamy. They're not just sitting at home being like, no, I just want to raise babies and stuff. Like usually there's somebody pushing a guy to go do more and more and more like that.
For them even still. We humans evolved just like every other creature out there, right? We evolved in communities. If you couldn't survive in the community, you didn't survive. You know, that's where our morals and ethics come from. It's built into our DNA, you know, working together as a community and taking care of each other. With our caveman ancestors, if there was a member of the community who was hoarding so many resources, to the point that other members of the community were unnecessarily dying, that member of the community was removed.
I think you're kind of fantasizing what you thought communities were.
Yeah. Or maybe the guy that was hoarding all the resources used some of those resources to pay people to protect him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe
by
that
hoarding all
happened
the
every now and
resources,
then.
like when you say hoarding all the resources, is it possible that he happened to be the smartest, most successful farmer and was making enough food for the community to grow, to prosper and grow and expand? You know, like yeah, there's just so many of those things where they, like, kulaks. That's what I'm thinking of, obviously.
Yep.
They went after the kulaks, and the kulaks were just guys who were smart and good and maybe a bit lucky enough to grow all the food. And that's good when there's lots of food. It's actually good when somebody makes lots and lots of food.
Well, this all just stems, like, it all always seems to come back to just blank slate theory to me. Because if you believe in blank slate theory, you think that the only thing that could possibly be the difference between you and somebody else is environmental factors or social conditioning, things like that. And that's an unfairness that can be mitigated. Like I could fix the IQ difference between me and Bill Reel. I could be as smart as Bill Reel, but I wasn't, because I was oppressed. Because we're both blank slates, and the only difference between us is his luck or whatever. And that feels like that's what it is with the kulaks. You'd be like, I could have done that, and so kill him, and I'll take over his farm. And then I'll run it into the ground because blank slate theory is bullshit. And he was just naturally smarter and more talented than I was.
I feel awful for this guy's kids. My heart breaks for them. No kid should have to go through this, to unnecessarily lose a loved one. But you know what? Far too many have, because of choices their dad made.
It is time. I've never told my story of...
Here it is. How our messed up dating culture leads to loneliness, anger, and Donald Trump. And also hypergamy, if you get down into it. New York Times article about hypergamy. Their conclusion: women caused Donald Trump to happen by doing too well, and after getting rights and still demanding to marry up. That's hypergamy. And that's also what happens when you have a woman who's doing too well, and then she demands that the guy that she marries makes $10 million a year as a CEO. So it's not just, I just think this is patriarchy culture, which is I don't know if you guys know this, but Sam was on to talk about football earlier, and most of the commentary she was able to add about it is, I just think this patriarchy culture going on here.
I love how cognate you make her.
I didn't know if it was Australian or cognate. I don't even know what accent it is. I just I go with cuntney.
Okay, so how do we? Okay, there's a joke in there somewhere. Somebody's got it right, because the way you know that you're a Cockney is if you were born in the sound of bow bells. So how do you know if you're a Cockney?
Well, they brought her on to be an expert to talk about football, and she said, "Come on, boys, run out onto the pitch." I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. But John Lynn wasn't much better. He said, like, one of the guys was, this is the captain of the team, and he's the center of the football team. So the center's like the biggest, strongest, toughest guy. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
The center?
The center's not the biggest, strongest, toughest guy. What are you talking about?
He's also not the captain, right?
He was just
he was in this case?
incidentally. Yeah. The captain's usually kind of like just the different guys who've been there the longest and maybe are leaders in the locker room and that type of stuff. They could be.
I assume the captain was the guy on the team who could read at a 4th grade reading level.
That usually helps, but not always. Did you guys hear the BYU?
No, I didn't hear the rant.
Yeah, maybe we'll pull that out next. Anyway, Josiah, don't doubt that the female hypergamy didn't make that guy hoard that wealth and didn't make them do it throughout time. Yes, even the noble savage, Josiah, even the noble savage. But throughout time, we've always been able to say, screw these guys who overly hoard too. I mean, I guess that's as old as agriculture is too, right? But there's no part in me that feels like I could justify somebody going and doing that way, But a lot of people are saying, like, we're going to start seeing a bunch of this happen now. There's going to be a bunch of copycats and stuff. And I guess there was some like major CEO meeting in Manhattan about all of them being safe and staying safe because they all could be on the chopping block. Bum, 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 bum.
Well, they had a security detail with him because he's been receiving an increased amount of threats, and they just happened to not be with him at that moment.
Yeah, that's a little weird. He was just kind of hanging out.
Yeah. Anyway, TikTok is just full of people saying "ha ha" or "yeah, serve that guy right" type deal stuff. I can't go there, although I can sympathize with people saying those insurance companies sure do stink sometimes. But at the same time, too, most people who have bad issues, if they had to pay for their bad issues out of a world that had no such thing as insurance, they'd be just as screwed. So, I don't know what the answer is to that, But an honest insurance company, one that has
the answer is empathy.
What they need, and I don't know if you guys know about this, but they need to start a revolution like the one that Snow White is helping the dwarves on.
Oh boy.
Rachel Ziegler leads CGI dwarfs in a revolution against Gal Gadot's evil queen, Snow White, and Taylor White.
Those are terrifying.
They're not only terrifying, but they're the proletariat, man. They're the proles. And they've got nothing to lose but their chains, man. The dwarves have nothing to lose but their axes, I guess. Each dwarf according to his needs. And so I guess that whole story is changing into revolution. And then I was thinking about all the stuff kind of came up that Wicked just released this week. And that just released. And there's no actual dwarves in either ones of them. And Peter Dinklage, you did the Lord's service and got all the dwarves fired from, or
what are the
not fired from.
Who plays the Munchkins?
Weird small people, small normal people.
Wait, so they went out and got. They just went and got people who weren't dwarves, but were really short to play the Munchkins.
This is a Munchkin. Yep. Not those. These are the Munchkins now.
So they discriminated against dwarves in the name of
dwarves. And Peter Dinklage, because he complained about it, he made, I guess, like the most dwarf hired thing in history was the original Wizard of Oz. And no, not anymore. Now they're these guys. Way to go, fellers.
I feel like their perfect empathy world involves us. It's because he's trying to say it's humiliating as a dwarf actor to be hired as a dwarf, but like what reasonably else could you play? And maybe in the empathy world, they're all playing like Tom Cruise roles and shit like that. Mission Impossible with Peter Dinklage in it.
Well, and if there is any other roles, they're always given to Peter Dinklage anyway, so it totally feels like pulling the ladder up type stuff.
I always wanted to watch. There was some movie that came out, I think, last year with Peter Dinklage, and he was like a sword fighter or something. And it looked.
Troy says he doesn't get our joke names today. Sorry.
I'll show you my joke name. We're getting to it right now. This is the BYU Cougars.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Right here. This guy, he was, I guess, the captain of the team, and he had like they had it on the Mormon newscast, and they had it on this right here. Here it is. This is the captain of the BYU football team. And of course, it created big think pieces from these guys because they were talking about, oh, the patriarchy. This is the patriarchy because they don't come down on the captain of the football team like they come down on everybody else.
He's a team captain.
Okay.
Yeah. This isn't a coach. This is a player.
Right.
So we're going to now hear a edited blue.
And I was making fun of how to talk football, they brought Sam from England on to
version of Tyler Batty's tirade at halftime of the BYU Arizona State football game. So let's roll with that.
Oh, does it say no sound?
No, it's good.
We did too much. We worked too hard. We were with our lives on the line for this game. What the are we doing out there, man? What are the guys around you? We sacrifice each other. We please each other. Right now. Hey, us. It ain't us, man. It ain't us. Can't have a football. Not us, man. We care way more than that. I tell you, because I'm wrong, I'll teach a word. I saw what we went through.
Wait, is this the pep talk?
Yeah, that's the halftime. That's the halftime pep talk. You guys never played football, did you?
No,
because
but I have to
if
say,
you do play football, you usually do get a pep talk from, as opposed to what Flip might have thought. No, it's usually the lowest IQ guy on the team, but he's pretty good at football.
I was gonna say, but because like that, I don't know. That to me is every bit as cringe as the PhDs marrying the brine shrimp. Like if that's what men do to make
that's what they do. That's real. Yeah.
That's
So I
pretty-
guess we got to eat it because yes, I sat through one of those. I played high school football, and I sat through one of those every single halftime ever. Yeah.
So, but like, hang on, I thought this was like a big deal. Like I
Yeah,
thought
he's cussing. He's a BYU guy cussing.
BYU, and he swore.
Yeah, but wait, is that all it
Let's
is?
circle it all the way back around to Jacob Hansen again, because what is this but them saying like, hey, BYU, where's your honor code? And these guys are getting upset because Jacob Hansen will call out. They say what he does is beyond the pale because he points at, hey, look what Julie Hanks is saying. Where's our disciplinary council on that? You guys are doing the same thing right here. Hey, BYU, why aren't you being fair in your disciplinary court stuff? Like, because I know you wouldn't do this to a girl. Yeah, I just feel like the patriarchy. Like, if this was a girl doing this, you would have done it.
Do you get kicked out of BYU for cussing?
No, nothing happened to him. And that's the
Yeah, I
problem.
don't know what. Yeah, but why is that a problem? That's not an honor code violation.
They say it's the honor code violation. They say it's an honor code violation, and that other women would have been kicked out if they'd done it. That's the point.
If they swore?
That's the point of these 2 hours, yes.
Yeah, but like, has anybody?
No, look, they did 2 hours. You shut up. There's 2 hours there. It's true.
I'm sorry. I'm just like losing
An hour
my
and
mind over
49
this.
minutes. How are you going to argue against an hour and 49 minutes?
This is like, I'm waiting. I was excited kind of to hear the rant because I thought it was going to be like the caption I saw, and it might have been Sam that said it, was talking about how entitled it sound. And I was waiting for him to say something insane or like racist or like he's shitting on his teammates or something like that. And then you just show me a cringy pep talk. So I was expecting something, and it's just like, this is massive. He said fuck a few times. And goddamn.
Why is he not?
Nobody gets kicked out for saying fuck.
If it was a woman, yes, huh?
Show me a woman who's get kicked out for saying fuck.
Well, they already said that the feminist Mormon housewives of Salt Lake City retail retards don't count. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. And they did get in trouble.
Like the BYU women's soccer team is legendary for dirty play. Like it was that BYU lady that yanked that other lady down by the ponytail.
True.
Like,
True.
She didn't get thrown out for being evil.
True.
There you go.
Do you still hear it?
Yeah.
Look, we got 30 minutes. Man, for me, it could be pretty much the last 1 minute of my career here. That's how much it means. That's how we might want to go to a championship. 30 minutes of our best football game is going to take. It's going to take you looking at the dude. And look at the dude next to you. Look at him in the eyes. And tell him, hey, I'm going to give everything I've got. I'm going to give you everything I've got for the next 30 minutes. I ain't going to complain. I'm going to play my heart out. And I don't care if they have everything else to do at the end of this game. That's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I could never be a football player because he'd say that and I'd raise my hand. I'd actually rather lose the game than be carried off the field at the end of the game. This is the worst part about it is he can't control his voice and he sounds pubescent. We're fucking doing this.
That's generally where I would have the problem with it because, like, for me, it'd be like, that's an 11. And when I went there, it was once a season and it was like the grand crescendo finale. And when we went there, it made us win the game. But when you play actual football, you realize like one of these donks does it like 5, 6, 7 times a game. And it doesn't matter if you guys just actually kind of petered out and screwed up the game because you just kind of I'm like, well, where'd he go next week, dude? You can't give that same speech next week. But he does. He does. Didn't work, but he'll do it again. So here he is, and they're here questioning, like, look, here he is on his Instagram flipping stuff up. And I'm not doing the Jacob Hansen thing. I'm not doing the Jacob Hansen thing and doxing this guy and showing his stuff and getting him in trouble. But why isn't the honor code saying something about these guys? But we're not like Jacob Hansen. We're not getting people in trouble by pulling up the stuff on the internet and asking why isn't the church doing any sort of disciplinary action against these people. We're not doing the Jacob Hansen thing. But we're just asking. Like, why wouldn't they do disciplinary action against these people?
Studio. These are the pictures that BYU takes of their athletes, and that's not interesting dress and grooming standards
And
that are enforced to other women, but not if you're the wife of the athlete.
And the byline says God, family, and BYU football. That's what the byline says. All right.
The byline in what?
Like in his Instagram profile.
Oh, right.
That's like his little. All right. So what's this next slide, Gerardo?
So now we're getting into the articles, and I decided to put this one here, but this was from the Washington Times.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
I think it's kind of cool. Like, can't we as progressive Mormons or ex-Mormons think it's kind of, can I say badass, that like he's defying cheesy parochial Victorian stereotypes, that he is that she is dressed in a way that's comfortable for her, that he is expressing himself in non-traditional purity Mormon ways, and that he's kind of being who he is on Instagram. Can we celebrate that?
Yeah, for sure.
Can we say that's cool?
In some ways, I know what you're saying, and also there's kind of a little bit of a thing in patriarchal cultures like Mormonism where it's like the rules can be bent if it's in a way that benefits a man and his sort of like potential ego and pleasure. So like having a wife who's dressed.
Hey, she's theorizing the world here. She's theorizing the world, and it's spot on.
Okay,
It's
I just
spot
figured
on.
it out. You know how I always say that like feminists don't view women as moral agents. Well, feminists are also patriarchal. She said a patriarchal thing right there because they said, look at this guy on his Instagram, he's flipping people off, and look at his wife, she's dressing like immodestly, and she's like, well, it only works if it's to the man's benefit. We wouldn't do this for women. So he can swear and stuff like that, and it's just fine. And he can have a wife that dresses like that, and it's just fine. It's like, hang on a second, no, she's a person too. So I think Sam's patriarchal.
I love this. I just got to play this real quick before we go back to the patriarchy. This is our football commentary, folk.
Probably happens in every halftime football game.
But it's like, use that, take it onto the pitch.
Yeah.
That's a proper speech right there. That'll get people going.
Stereotypes that she is dressed in a way that's comfortable for her, that he is expressing himself in non-traditional purity Mormon ways, and that he's kind of being who he is on Instagram. Can we celebrate that?
Yeah, for sure.
Can we say that's cool?
In some ways, I know what you're saying, and also there's kind of a little bit of a thing in patriarchal cultures like Mormonism where it's like the rules can be bent if it's in a way that benefits a man and his sort of like potential ego and pleasure. So like having a wife who dresses more, like modern day hot girl is like benefiting him as a husband, and she's married and she belongs to a man, so it's kind of like more okay.
Yeah, they don't.
I don't know.
You're
It's just interesting.
You're fucking patriarchal. You're a misogynist. Like, are you trying to say that if she weren't married, she'd be kicked out of BYU for wearing that? Like, and also on her personal Instagram, are they asking?
Well, don't you know that, like, at BYU, if a chick shows up in a bikini, but if you're the husband, you show up like, oh no, this is for me. This is to give me a hard on. They let it go.
We're so sorry, sir. Take your
Sorry,
property with you.
I didn't realize this was about your jollies. Patriarchal jollies are A-okay.
Just make sure you have this I have a husband pass to bring with you.
It does feel like a lot of the rules that in patriarchal groups like Mormonism that people will be willing to bend are the ones that generally cater to like the male experience.
But couldn't we say that's a courageous thing to do? Like he's trying to change culture and say, hey, Mormons, don't be so prudish. Hey, church, I'm going to defy your rules. I'm not going to be a good little
Mormons
priesthood
don't
boy.
swear.
I'm going to be me.
Like, yes, they do. Mormons swear. Like a lot of things they're not supposed to do, they do anyway. You know, and then there's J. Golden Kimball, was the famous swearing apostle. You know,
You can tell that John Dolan never, like, even though he grew up in Utah, he never talked to a football player in his life.
You know, like,
he played basketball, didn't he? He should know this. I'm sure plenty of the Mormons on his basketball team talk like that.
I had a great uncle, and like at his funeral, he was a patriarch. And I remember, like, because, you know, like, I didn't know him well because he was a great uncle. He was already old. I mean, I was fairly young when he died. But at his funeral, they read a letter from the first presidency, you know, like, because he'd palled around with those guys back in the day, like Hinckley, those Hinckley times, 90s. And I remember my dad talking about this guy because, you know, like, because he was the patriarch, literally the patriarch of the family, and he was a patriarch, and he was a very good Mormon guy. And whenever they'd get together to take a family picture, he would say, you know, when normally when everybody says say cheese, he would just go shit, and everybody would laugh, and smile, and get a great picture. It's like, well, there you go, swearing patriarch. Nobody spazzed out. Everybody just laughed about it
because it's a way that benefits men.
No, that's
none of
right.
the, I bet none of the women got a laugh out of it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Anyway,
probably fail soon because I gotta work in the morning.
No.
But
you got to explain what your name is there.
well, just because CEO guy got shot, and you know, just like we were saying earlier, like the CEOs are kind of jumpy right now, and it's totally understandable. So CEO, no. But one thing I definitely wanted to talk about, just because this week, the select committee, whatever, their like report on COVID, it's like, yeah, it came from a lab. Yeah, they all lied about it. Yeah, Fauci is a liar. Yeah, a whole bunch of other people lied. Yeah, some lady, like, I can't remember what, some lady in the health department destroyed records. Like, yeah, all the shit was true. And like, just to coincide with that, it's just so perfect because like I just recently started a new job working for a gigantic healthcare provider. And as a condition of my employment, I have to be up to date on all my vaccines. And just 2 days ago, I got 3 vaccines and I'm getting another one in a month. But when they were telling me about all of the vaccines I had to get, there's only one vaccine they specifically mentioned was not required. And that's the COVID vax. The only one they said you don't have to get was the COVID vax. Like they said, I have to get an annual flu shot. And then like I periodically have to get blood tests to test my blood for reactivity to whatever to make sure like all my vaccines are like. So I had to get, what did I get? I got hepatitis B, a tetanus, and I think an MMR booster. I don't know. I got a bunch of, you know, the classics. But yeah, I thought it was so funny. Where like, you know, the only thing they said you don't have to get is the COVID vaccine. It's like, well, I wonder why. Is it because it's bullshit and it doesn't work? And just having COVID is better immunity? Go figure.
I think we need to. I'm grateful for COVID amnesty because we all did things we regret during COVID.
Yeah, that's right.
You guys, like,
Listen.
we said we really hate wearing masks and we don't think that these lockdowns work at all and locking people into tiny apartment buildings during a an airborne viral infection probably isn't a good idea, especially closing down parks and arresting fathers and sons for playing catch in those parks. Probably not a good idea. Probably doesn't work very well. You guys told us that we need to get passports in order to go to the grocery store. It made us worry about losing our jobs if we don't get a shot that didn't work.
There's going to be a reckoning. They're going to go after legally Anthony Fauci's lies because no one's above the law.
Oh, that's right. We got to talk about this.
So there is talk that they are going to give Fauci a sweeping pardon as well.
Like a preemptive one.
Yeah. No, but yeah, because I mean that's this whole thing where, like, because I was wondering, like, is there any precedent for a president to not just pardon convictions, but actually like preemptively pardon conjectural crimes? And the only, like Ben Shapiro said, the only other time this has happened was the Nixon pardon. And the kind of idea was to just put it all to bed once and for all. Like, we're not going to dig this up anymore. He resigned. He's gone. But like this thing where it's like, oh, he's not just pardoned for the things he was convicted of. He's pardoned for all potential crimes from an 11-year period.
Let's say let's pardon him for every crime for, let's say, I don't know, some period of time, like 11 years, right before he started at Burisma in Ukraine and potentially had crazy dealings.
No Russian difference.
January. The pardon begins from January of what, 2011, 2014? Can't remember.
2011. It's 2014 because it's 11 years. Which means how much you want to bet?
Also, like, I know, like,
Hunter went into his dad and was like, "Hey, Dad, this is 11 years starting January 2014, right? Does that mean I got like another month to just go criming and shit?"
Well, no, that's like Ben Shapiro made that point, is that because like the pardon was good up until the end of the day, so there was a period of 12 hours or so. There's a period of several hours that, in theory, Hunter Biden could have done whatever the fuck he wanted. Sorry, presidential pardon. There you go. But the other whole thing where it's like,
it doesn't have like a future thing. When I listen to you guys talk about 2014, it just makes me see this. It makes me see
that's not
slowly
they really
morph into Putin. Yeah,
like they're still pushing that.
Yeah, that was Pac-Man was explaining to me how dangerous Kash Patel is today. You want to know one of the things Kash Patel did? Out of loyalism to Trump, he thought that the Russia investigation was bullshit, and he tried to hamper it in a lot of ways.
Oh my goodness!
And the only way he could do that, the only motivation could possibly be a loyalty to Trump.
Yeah, and to hide. That's why Mueller didn't find anything. It was all hid by Kash Patel.
It's so weird. Like, it's just the 1984 memory that people have, because, like, you know, I remember the Obama years. And I remember Obama saying a lot of, Putin, you better stay out of Syria, guy, or else. And in that time, Russia built permanent military bases in Syria. And, you know, like, and just all that stuff, like, oh, hey, no, you better leave Crimea alone, Mr. Putin, or else. Putin snatches up Crimea and nothing happens. Then the Trump years happen, and Putin gains nothing. And then Biden becomes president, and the Ukraine war happens. Like, and there's the whole idea that, like, that Trump is the friend to Russia.
No, it's Tulsi Gabbard who loves Russia.
Oh yeah, that's right. The NPR told me yesterday that it was Russian propaganda that the Americans fund biolabs in Ukraine. The Russians made that up, guys.
It's Russian propaganda that anything happened weird in Ukraine from 2014 on.
Yeah,
it's Russian propaganda that they crossed any red lines at all. Scott Horton just released a book. It's his great big opus Dei. It's called Provoked. And one of the things that you pointed out is, like, you remember, like, when Putin was first, like, moving in on Ukraine, all of the news stations, just like happens with those news stations, like where they all get like they get the memo. There's an endless stream of them all saying, unprovoked. This was an unprovoked attack. It's an unprovoked. It's one of those things, like, they say it so much that you're like, why are you saying that so much?
Yeah.
Why?
Like, this is like Putin. Like, I'm not on his side, and it's not justified, and he should have stayed the fuck out of Ukraine. But like, I watched his thing at the beginning of the war. Putin did that like 30-minute address to the world of like, why am I doing this? And he made a few points that were totally valid. Because one of the things he said was valid is that like when communism fell and Putin took over and the USSR broke up, there was a gentleman's agreement, as they put it, that the Americans would stay the fuck out of Ukraine. Now we know that because of Hunter Biden's laptop and the pardon, we know that they broke that promise, and we know that NATO was moving in there. Like, we know that the Americans did color revolutions there, right? Now we were there because so was Putin, but like Putin has the point that like, you guys promised to stay out of Ukraine and you didn't. Okay. And the other thing he said that was like, yeah, that's totally fair, which is that in the early 2000s, when the world was dealing with Islamic terrorists, like when America got attacked, the whole world rallied around America and supported us as we did all kinds of fucked up shit like the Iraq War, and then 20 years in Afghanistan and all that stuff. Whereas like while Russian, the Beslan school hostage situation, the theater attack, the whole Chechen war, like the whole world just said, yeah, that's your problem, Russia. Fuck off. Putin was right about that. Like, nobody rallied around to help Russia fight their Islamic terrorists, and their Islamic terrorists were actually in the country. They were domestic Islamic terrorists for the Russians, but yeah, no, we were like, oh, whatever. That's your problem, pal. He's right. Like that was bullshit. Like, if we really were all on the same team against Islamic terrorism, we should have been on the same team, and we weren't. We're like, all right, whatever, buddy. Like, I don't know if you know about the Beslan school hostage thing. Like, that's one of the worst things. You know about that thing? Chechen terrorists went into an elementary school and kept put all the students and parents and children, like it was like pickup time, like hundreds and hundreds of them, and they put them all in the like whatever gymnasium. I was about to say the cultural hall, and like they did fucked up shit. Like they wired up grenades and draped them around all of the necks of the people, and they were like that for ages. And like, I can't remember, hundreds of people were killed, all this stuff. But like, it's like, you guys haven't even heard of it. That's how little that happened. Yeah. Like that's how much the American and the Western news cared about Russians having to fight Muslim terrorists. Anyway, I'm getting tired and I got to get up early, so I'm going to bail early.
Alrighty.
Good times.
See ya.
This is those wraparound smears on Tulsi Gabbard that they're doing. Ex-Tulsi Gabbard aides say she was a devout consumer of Kremlin propaganda network TV, RT, like tweeted by Julia Davis. And it's one of those wraparound smears, like they say, somebody said that she's in with Russia because she like listens to Russian, talks to Russians. And then it gets reported in the news, and then they say, the news said that it was, but somebody pointed out that this lady right here, this is the very lady pointing this. Columnist at the Daily Beast, creator of the Russian Media Monitor, author of a book, in their own words. I watch Russian state TV, so you don't have to. Oh, so you can watch Russian TV if you're a reporter on it, but there's no reason you should watch it if you're somebody who's in government intelligence at all. Not that you even have proof at all that she was doing that, but there's no reason why you would watch it except for that you love it and agree with all of it. That's the only we watch anything. Yeah.
That sums up all of these accusations. It's always, that's the only reason.
The only reason is they love it.
It's like with Kavanaugh when Blasey Ford was doing her testimony, and Sam Harris tweeted one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. He's like, what possible motivation would a woman have to lie about this? I was like, are you stupid?
Yeah, I didn't have that on the screen, but this is the lady saying that it was their aides, and then just down here she's like, I watch Russia tweet. I watch Russia Today all day, every day. Like, way to go, lady. The Hunter stuff. Hunty. Let's listen to one of those things. I wish I had the one of all of them announcing that Russia was unprovoked. And I don't know, like at some point, like the mainstream media, as they call it, it seems like they got to get wise to. It doesn't look good when they all just go and regurgitate the same talking line, like
verbatim.
It's obvious, verbatim. Like you guys are getting talking points, and it's being exposed now. Stop doing that. You guys should be smart enough to stop doing that, and you're not yet.
Yeah, you guys are single-handedly convincing me that maybe there is a cabal.
Maybe there's a cabal, and also convincing me that you're kind of dumb. You're dumber than I thought you were.
A threat to our democracy.
Yeah.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law.
Well,
It's man, they can't. They all even have to do it in the same cadence. They all have to say, "No one is above the law." You know, that's probably a good part of why Trump won in the first place, or why he appealed to people in the first place, was because he doesn't sound like your everyday person, but he sounds like a guy that everybody kind of know, like your weird uncle who rambles and brags about himself too much. But these guys all sound like the same person. It's a general conference voice. I guarantee you, if somebody got up in general conference, and like even Holland speaks just a tiny bit differently than the rest of those dudes, and he's everyone's favorite apostle. If you get up there and speak like an actual speaker, like saying things that normal people would say, that's even marginally interesting, you would be the favorite apostle until you die. It's the same thing with politicians.
One of the things about politics, the politics of people, the politics of whatever, is part of the situation is a bunch of those news people knew and had to know that sooner or later Biden was going to do this. And they still had to try out and give a bald-faced like announcement that he would never do this. And they had to like march in and do that. And it's like, you are getting so thrown under the bus for that. It's not even funny. Like
There's a few of them, man, that seem genuinely hurt over it.
Yeah.
Like
some of them had to know in the first place that they're like, I'm going to eat my words for this. But
all of them had to know that. I don't understand it. Like, how dumb are you if you didn't, the second you heard him say, I'm not going to pardon my son, how did you not just immediately think, yeah, that would look bad on you right now? But you're definitely lying. Like, you're definitely going to pardon him after you win or lose.
Yeah. But they march him out, and that's part of the people who just get thrown under the bus for that sorts of stuff. I don't know. I remember because there's stuff with office politics. Like I see it all the time at my work. There was this thing, and just to be kind of vague about it, but there's a situation where some money could have been paid out to just take care of something in the first place. And somebody who doesn't like have top level authorization goes, we can't do that. They don't do that. And then later an outcry happens. And then the people above them come back and say, why didn't you do that? And you go, you never would have authorized me doing that. But now later that the complaint happens, you can come down on me to say, oh, this was that person not being the good person or something like that. And I see that sort of thing happen so often. And I kind of wonder how that person who was thrown under the bus, like, are they promoted or not promoted for that? Because they actually gave the people in the higher place the out of being the baddie first, but then the person that they could chew out for, how did you choose that wrong? And they knew that they were going to do it that way. But does that become a promotion for that person? Or does that become like, oh, I better demote that person for having done the wrong decision that I actually wanted them to make, that I could later come down on him for and look better for it?
Mm-hmm. No, usually in managerial positions, fuck-ups that are at least not catastrophic or racist, they get you promoted.
Yeah, I'd say so too. Coomer time. Now, Flip's gone. We talk about the Coomers and the Coomerisms that's going on.
Destiny's so gross, man.
So a leak came out this week that Destiny. Everybody probably knows who Destiny is, but everybody thinks he's going to be the Joe Rogan of the left because he's able to have conversations and stuff on Twitter. No, he's never going to be the Joe Rogan of the left. But he's all over the debate world. He's on those Jubilee debates and all that stuff. And then old Nick Fuentes here, our famous little Fed of a what you call them, the gripers, would you call them white supremacists? Like they are adjacent to that. They play with it. But then, of course, everybody points to them and says, look this is the guy that got brought in with Kanye West to meet with Trump to say, look who's with Trump. Although in the end, this guy did not support Trump after the election. He said he withheld his support. And so did Richard Spencer, for that sake. I heard somebody talking about Richard Spencer recently, the white supremacist, as the only guy in the world who liked who's that president who's in for 4 terms that everybody hated because he was FDR, who was was it FDR? Yeah. He was super racist but super progressive. So the only person who actually likes him is Richard Spencer, who actually put in. They watched the Birth of a Nation in the White House and he loved it and all that stuff. But then again, he put in all those progressive programs for people and changed the U.S. in that sort of way. Richard Spencer loves that guy. Anyway, Fuentes, the Fed, the white supremacist. There's a rumor floating around that he and Destiny have a sex tape. And so Nick Fuentes and Destiny. And there is a sex tape of Destiny, and it's only rumored to be Nick Fuentes, but they can't verify that it's Nick Fuentes.
It's one of those, it's the recreational beliefs. It'd be really hilarious if that were true. I would love it. But yeah, it's difficult. There's no way to tell that it's Nick Fuentes. They just say that it lines up with the time that he was around Destiny. So maybe, but I have to imagine Destiny sucks a lot of dick. So it could be anyone.
I guess in those same leaks, it was leaked that Lauren Southern and him really did have an affair.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's nuts.
And some people say that Lauren Southern only did that affair because it helped her get onto Twitch or something like that, and inside of a certain group. So it was an obviously ladder climbing affair for her.
So much for trad wife, huh?
Goodness gracious. So Fuentes was the one who said, "Your body, my choice," that got them all up in arms. Because that must certainly be Trump's America. It always cracks me up that it's supposedly Trump's America, and that guy wasn't even a Trump supporter at the end of stuff. But and he was obviously cracking a joke right there. And the guy's a Fed, and he's gay, and he's not real in any way. I think he really is actually gay, even though they don't have proof of that stuff. People have been joking about it forever.
Yeah, I could see that.
He's just a ridiculous person. I think Jacob was just bragging this week that he got blocked by Nick Fuentes or something like that. And he was bragging about it. The Analyzing Mormon chick put out this video. Let me watch this video. Where'd she go? Oh, I gotta watch that.
Those Destiny leaks were pretty funny, like the chat leaks where he's
because he did so much other coomery stuff and was
he's talking about
super young chicks, and
he's talking about how much he loves butt plugs, and it just takes it to the next level when he just sits around with a butt plug in.
And he's the one that they're saying is the great hope to become the next Joe Rogan.
As soon as somebody finds out you're a cuck, we like to try to be as rational as we can, right? And you could be a cuck and make very rational arguments, but as soon as people find out you're a cuck, they can't see the things that you're saying as having merit. They can't take you seriously. You let your wife fuck a bunch of other dudes, and then she left you for a guy who threatened to kill himself. I'm not gonna take you seriously.
I actually think this is a perfect little video put out by our Analyzing Mormonism friend here, because references a movie here.
My reaction when Kamala Harris was not elected.
Where do you learn to do those TikTok exasperated stares and point and stuff like that? Is there like a college for that nowadays? Like type stuff? They point at the words that you're saying, or
Yeah, I don't know. She just never. It's easy for her because she never opens her eyes more than halfway. And so she just opens them all the way. She reveals that she actually has some hidden crazy eyes.
Yeah. So then it cuts to a Ghostbusters clip.
Hey, freaks, I'm about to say you from this ghost. Okay, so I don't know if it was a race thing or a lady thing, but I'm mad as hell.
Did you know that
So I actually think that's the perfect little metaphor there.
That is. That's actually the metaphor because it's a fat thing.
Not elected.
What's that?
Okay, you sweaty.
Sorry, I gotta get this
I
pause.
said it's the perfect metaphor because it's neither. It's a fat thing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's neither one of those two
Yeah.
things. It's obviously neither one of those two things in that situation. And you just played yourself because it wasn't one of those two things of why Kamala Harris didn't get elected either. It's because she was a candidate throwing herself to the crowd, and the crowd said, "No, thanks, I'm not grabbing that." It's the perfect little metaphor for that because it's not your assumptions, just like Sam's assumptions about patriarchy. It's I don't know what they call it. I heard Yarvin in that same video. He was talking about what he called a sky hook, and what a sky hook is. Let me see. I'll have him say it right here. Is that showing him on the screen again?
Yeah.
We know what a sky hook is, but it's something that James Lindsay and Pluckrose have talked about too.
Do you know what a skyhook is logically? It's like basically if you have like one fallacious statement, like 2 + 2 = 5, you can, if you assume that 2 + 2 = 5, you can construct this enormous world of like fantasy mathematics on the theory that 2 + 2 = 5. Similar.
So yeah, it's just that thing is like you're starting assumptions wrong, and then you can create a whole giant concoction of a theory from that is wrong and just growing in wrongness. That's why Pluckrose talked about it when she talked about all of that postmodernism in academia, is that you guys start with a premise and then you grow and grow and grow and grow and grow that premise, and it's all just you're incorrect about the thing, man.
Well, you usually just start with your conclusion. You premise your way back to it. Like this premise would have to be true for my conclusion to be true. So this premise is true. And that's what it is. The premise is, or the conclusion is patriarchy did it, right? So you're like, oh, it's pretty easy to say, like, if only men are getting away with saying fuck and not being very Mormon without getting kicked out of BYU, it's pretty easy for you to say patriarchy. But then you can see that women are doing the same thing and also not getting kicked out. So you have to also say patriarchy. It takes a lot more mental gymnastics to do that, though.
Yeah. It actually kind of stems back to a little bit why James Lindsay's right, although I don't love that push on the woke right thing. I think they do need, I mean, we've been criticizing that sort of thing all along, and Yarvin is one of the people inside that world, but it kind of doesn't work to call them like the woke right or to say that they are necessarily Marxist because they use some of the Marxist ideas, but to lend, and those ideas are, like I said, the critiques. But one of the critiques that I think is a bad critique, we've talked about it before, and I think this is something that also happens in religious critique. And I had it written down right here. They say this. They say, the Marxists say this about people inside of liberalism, and then you got to think about how the religious people talk about the non-religious people as well. And it's they don't realize that their own internal experiences are unique, ironically enough, because they believe it's actually everyone's internal experience, and they just haven't realized it yet. Collectivism. The religious conviction comes from the sense that because they have awakened to it, it's their duty to spread the salvific vision, narcissistic euphoria, to everyone by twisting their values to fit the narrative. Cult initiation is when you are made, plus emphasis, to realize that your deepest values are actually the universal salvific. And so what I'm saying by that is if you go back to like Adorno in the Frankfurt School, one of their huge premises is that none of us in our capitalism and doing our what do we call it, like the grilling in our cars and our Sea-Doos and our jets, our weekend, our live for the weekend life, none of us are actually happy in that. You know, nobody's actually happy with their consumerism or their video games or their guitars or, you know, none of this is actual happiness.
Well, it's one of those things that like ex-Mormons will criticize it correctly, you know, when Mormons do it, but then they'll also do it, right? So like I don't see many Mormons say it so much now, but I'm sure they do. Like when the whole idea was if you leave the church, you'll be unhappy. And then they see people being, you know, all right, kind of happy. And then they'll say, well, it's just not true happiness. They can't have true happiness because they don't have the truth. And ex-Mormons will point out that that's bullshit, and rightfully so. But then Tanner goes on to answer my question about can conservatives, or like, are they capable of empathy? He goes on to explain how he grew up thinking that he had empathy, but never experiencing true empathy. And then once he left the church, he could experience true empathy. They just do this same fucking thing.
Yeah, and that's from that side of it. But then we also see like the religious people they'll tell me that like I don't have true joy because I'm smoking a cigar or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what true joy is unless I'm striving for celestial salvation, right? And maybe they're right or something like that. But that's the sort of deal where you get a little bit of the horseshoe theory going on there, in the sense of you guys think unless I'm striving for your salvific, your salvation utopia, I don't know what true joy is. And if I think in my head at all that the consumerist society that we were raised up in, that just was into philosophy and had our video games or something like that, if there was any sort of true joy in that, it was fake, which is the same thing Adorno says about it from the other side. This is what I'm saying is like, this is one area where James Lindsay's correct, that there's a little bit of that same thing in both the far right and the leftists, that you aren't truly happy unless you're striving for our same utopia, and you just don't realize it. And we're here to make you realize it.
Yeah.
Dennett, Troy Levitt pulled out, that was the Dennett quote, I guess. Dennett uses the term skyhook to represent any from the sky belief that is used to explain the origins of something. He uses it in opposition to cranes that are bottom up. Yeah. So
I like it.
Yeah, and that sort of thing, I think is kind of funny because the Frankfurt School and so much of that postmodernist literature that turns all the way up into the stuff that became the grievance papers, that became the Sniff paper, the blue, what was it, the hydro love, the papers that we were covering.
Too many descriptors, they told you.
Yeah, and queer death studies. You remember they said that last week, queer death studies? All those things are based off of like the premise of they needed to rework around their Marxism because it didn't work, so we got to rework it. And so it's like kind of creating this whole foundation on the skyhook again of saying, well, our thing didn't work, but we need to rework it till it works. And because, well, that's part of the dialectic. You have to readdress it. You have to readdress it until you get it right. Negate the negation is what they call it. You gotta go after it again and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
Well, mine was a change of subject.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you want to hear some brain rot?
You sure?
This is from queerdeathstudies.net. This is the official website of Queer Death Studies Network. Queer Death Studies Network was officially launched in November 2016 at the G16 Swedish National Gender Research Conference in Linköping, and has been vividly developing since then. The co-founders of the network are Nikolai, blah, 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 blah. The network constitutes a space for researchers, students, artists, activists, and practitioners who critically and self-reflexively investigate the challenge, conventional normatives, assumptions, expectations. This is all the normal thing. That are brought to life and made evident by death, dying, and mourning. The conventional engagements with the questions of death, dying, and mourning are insufficient and reductive. They are often governed by the normative notions of the subject, interhuman and human/non-human bonds, family relations and communities, rituals, and finally, experiences of grief, mourning, and bereavement. Moreover, these engagements are often embedded in constraining beliefs in life/death divides. Oh my God, they're blurring the boundary between life and death. That's
yeah.
constructed along the lines of conventional religious and/or scientific mind-body dualisms. Against this background, queer death studies serves as a
They're
site for
against the mind-body dualism, or they're for it.
I think it sounds like they're against it. These engagements are often embedded in constraining beliefs in life and death divides constructed along the lines of conventional religious and/or scientific mind-body dualisms.
Scientific mind-body against scientific mind-body dualisms.
Mm-hmm.
Are there scientific mind-body dualisms?
No, it's like definitionally no.
I thought science kind of landed on the side of the monism.
The mind is the body. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is.
But that's just it. Is like once again, it's being built on some sort of skyhook. Like you're not getting to any sort of knowledge because whatever they're building upon was already wrong. You know, and you don't even know what they're talking about. Which is, I'm saying a little bit about like Sam talking about all her patriarchy theories along with football. I'm not saying that there's no patriarchy in it, but their theories aren't helping, and they're building off of something that's incorrect and giving us analysis that's wrong from its premise and from the premise before the premise started.
It linked me to an article called "Queer Death Studies: Death, Dying, and Mourning from a Queer Feminist Perspective." Like when you say queer, do you really have to include feminist or colonialist or anything like that? Like, because it's just implied, isn't it? They're right that it's an umbrella term, but it's not an umbrella term for people who experience different sexual attraction. It's an umbrella term for retarded ideologies. Oh, it's an emerging transdisciplinary field. Ooh.
So this is why I say like something that's just like waiting out there for the taking is for the first person to come up with the most wrong reason of why Kamala lost, but it sounds academic enough for people to start building on it, like a skyhook. Like the field is ripe, ready to harvest, to drop a new skyhook. And anytime they have like something that's like a massive brain fart to them, like what our world didn't work out how we thought it was going to work out, and they actually kind of have to like stop like deers in the headlight and go, what happened? That's not prime for them to reflect and get it right. It's skyhook time, and who's the best new skyhook, and then from that skyhook build upon that skyhook of why it didn't work out like they said it was working out.
Yeah, well, you do have to try a different angle, because I differentiate between the uninitiated wokies and the like academic wokies, right? Because the uninitiated will just go with the obvious, like it's because she's a woman or it's because she was black. Nobody's gone with it's because she's Indian yet. So maybe somebody should pick that up, but it's still pretty uninitiated. The academic wokies, I'm trying to think of a good reason why they would say that she lost. They could.
Well, like I said, the New York Times just tried to pull up hypergamy.
Wait, no, I got it. It's because we're a sobrio-normative society. we have deemed sobriety as the normative.
Nope. You're wrong, because they can't go with that, because they're all on about Hegsteth is a drunk.
Oh.
So you can't go with that, because you can't go admitting that Kamala was a wine ant.
Yeah, you can, because part of this is like being a hypocrite is easy when you're woke, because you just use oppression hierarchies to justify your bullshit.
He's just a drunk, and whereas Kamala was a alternative state enthusiast. I don't know.
She is a brave warrior against our oppressive sobrio-normative culture.
Sobrio oppressive. How'd you say it?
She was a brave warrior against our oppressive sobrio-normative culture.
Oh man,
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write an academic paper on sobrionormativity.
you could do it. Like you could make a foundational grievance paper, like not just one that slipped in. You could make a foundational one that gives people new ways to start.
I'm going to Google that word. I bet it already exists because they've queered everything
Oh, I'm
at this
sure.
point.
Oh no, I'm sure. I mean, it's got to exist, like in the unhoused world, right?
Yeah.
And Foucault, 100% Foucault would be. I mean, half of the reason why Schellenberger gets into this in San Francisco, where he talks about the Foucauldian world totally made all of San Francisco say, yeah, but is being an addict really just, is that degenerative or is that just a different way of being? That's in Schellenberger's San Francisco. And they totally get that way and talk about that stuff that way.
I don't know what this is, but I found an article from American Theater. They don't use that word. It's entitled "Sobriety is a Social Justice Issue Too." Inclusive practices around sobriety helps everyone struggling with addiction, but especially people of color in recovery. Oh, so they're talking about. Okay, so no, it's still not what I was saying.
You know, there's a whole field of disability studies, right? I remember I spent like a day or two reading through them on Stanford Press. The Stanford, they have like a library that just kind of goes through the brief overviews of all these different academic fields. I'm sure the queer death is in there now, but they absolutely have critical disability studies, and I'm sure sobriety's got to be in there somewhere.
Oh, damn, I missed it by just a year. Last year, The Independent had a paper called "Sobriety is Not Superior. Challenging Oppression Requires Us to Check Our Own Biases." Social acceptance for people who use substances moves at a glacial pace. People who use substances continue to face immense levels of stigma and discrimination. They are confronted with dehumanizing attitudes and barriers that limit their access to housing, healthcare, and other essential services. When this stigma and discrimination is paired with racism, anti-2S LGBTQIA plus bias, classism, and other forms of oppression, it becomes all the more difficult for people to access the services they need. Well, okay, no, they're still saying that they need services, I guess.
Look what I found. All I had to do was type in the right words. Critical, they call the crippled disability studies, they call it CRIP studies, CRIP theory. Critical CRIP disability studies and sobriety intersect in a complex way, where the field of CRIP theory examines how societal norms and expectations around disability, including experiences with addiction and recovery, can be oppressive and need to be challenged, while also acknowledging the unique experiences of people with disabilities navigating sobriety within a predominantly ableist world.
Man.
So how are you? I told you, I brought this up forever ago. The difficult thing about actually making papers in these worlds
is finding a subject that hasn't been done.
Finding a subject that hasn't been done. And then when you go and talk about it, like you have to cite everything that ever got close to it. So you have to also go read all the other shitty papers and reference them. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, like really, who's to say that cirrhosis of the liver is less preferable objectively than I don't want to say healthy liver because that's health normative, but that's the society that we live in.
Yeah, that's just a differently abled liver.
Yeah. God damn it. Oh, fuck all of this shit.
Yeah, it's all just built on a skyhook, man. Just built on a skyhook. I was going to try to Google something else with that. CRIP studies, sobriety studies. Anyway. But Maven, going all the way back to what Maven said to Jonathan, how dare you just use a diminutive statement and just say this is just some sort of religion or something like that.
The funniest part was her accusing Jonathan of being one of those people that knows nothing about these subjects.
Oh, yeah, that is funny too. I think you made a meme on that one. I think I have that somewhere.
Oh, yeah, the Ron Swanson one. That's kind of just what she does. She has like the dumbest takes too. Like that, she has the weakest. Talking to her about abortion, she has such weak abortion arguments.
Here's your thing on that. Hello, white male. Let me explain postmodernism. And there's Jonathan saying, I know more than you know. But John always asks him the question, like, could you explain that to me more? And then usually it devolves into, I don't owe you an explanation. You're paying for my time. You got to pay me for the.
Yeah, he offered to pay that lady, and she didn't.
Still didn't want to do it.
Yeah. What are your rates? Oh, Jesus.
I don't know when I talk about that. We're still trying to get some continuing abortion dialogue with Maven, but that's maybe for a different date to talk about.
Yeah.
What else going on? Hold on.
What we got in the description here? Brian Shrimp, nobody's above the law. Jacob, Revolution Dwarves. X-tian Nationalists are Marxists. Heartland versus Mesoamerica.
Oh yeah, there was debate.
Yeah, did you watch the whole thing? Did you watch the whole thing?
I watched most of it live. I got a little clip from just after the debate here. I'll pull it up. The Ward Radio, Luke from Ward Radio, and Rod Meldrum had a debate on if the Book of Mormon happened somewhere around Mesoamerica or somewhere around the Heartland. Here it is. And the sage. Either I don't know what church they're holding this in, but I mean, yeah, this was at the beginning of it here. So. But it's a pretty good point. I mean, he's making a good point. I mean,
Oh, Jesus.
So it was a pretty good debate. I mean, some good points were made by all.
Yeah. So where do you land on it? Where were the Nephites?
Know for sure where the Book of Mormon happened. Well, we don't know for sure where a lot of stuff specifically happened. Do we know where the crossing of the Red Sea happened with Moses? Actually, no, there's a lot of debate about that.
Well, there's the Red Sea.
I think it's just expectations versus reality. And really, the amount of archaeological evidence that's been done makes it hard to pinpoint exactly where the Book of Mormon happened, but also it was Mesoamerica.
Phrase, I think.
Yeah, well, I guess the thing the Red Sea has going for it is that we limited it to the Red Sea rather than just half the fucking globe.
You know what? I watched this whole thing that had nothing to do with Mormonism about all the stuff they're finding underneath the Amazon. And there's so much. They're finding so much underneath the Amazon. And I think there'd be like no greater time for Mormons to say, just wait until we uncover all the Amazon. You know what I mean? Because I had no idea like how much stuff's being dug up under there.
Yeah, I felt like if you assume that Mormonism is correct, right, then there is such a thing as scriptural or revelatory evidence, right? And so assuming that, I feel like the Heartland, the real problem is that the Heartland model seems to have, from what I can tell, the brief stuff I've delved into, seems to have the most scriptural evidence and like zero physical evidence, whereas the Mesoamerica one has some physical evidence and no scriptural evidence, right? Because like isn't it just pretty obvious that Joseph Smith assumed it was in probably America, maybe North America?
Forrest says it's one of those debates where both sides accurately point out why the other side.
Yeah.
Ryan says it's like debating what century the X's happened in, the 3rd, 5th century, because neither work. Ryan says that he was there. So Meldrum has like a lot of quotes that Joseph Smith seemed to think that it kind of happened around or near him.
Well, he had Zelf. I mean, he found Zelf in like fucking Missouri, and he's like, this guy was a Lamanite. He was white because he was a good guy,
But here's my question though: like, if the Book of Mormon's all real as we know it, would Joseph Smith necessarily know right exactly where it happened?
No, that's really the point that you can bring up. But then there's all the scriptures that seem to obviously be alluding to the United States of America, as the choice nation of freedom and shit like that. So yeah, you're right. I think if I were an apologist, that's the route I would take, is that, like, look, Joseph Smith wrote these words down as he saw them, and he made educated guesses based on those words, and he might have been totally wrong. He could have thought it took place in Canada, maybe it was Peru, like, it has to at least be close enough for a dude to walk all the way to New York, though. There's that.
I'll be honest, I wasn't thoroughly entertained watching it, but we complained forever ago that John DeLynn didn't let Meldrum get a word out so we could hear his claims.
And I wanted to hear his wacky claims, and then I didn't, and I had more fun watching John DeLynn rage bait for me. Than I did. I stopped that debate after like 3 minutes. Like, this is dumb.
Well, maybe it was more interesting to watch him filibuster it than to actually hear the story of the stuff.
Like a discussion with a doubter like John DeLynn could be interesting with Rod Meldrum, because you could give him some pushback. Like, tell me where you think this happened and this happened. And you could say, I think it happened in Ohio, this specific thing. And you'd be
we can discuss the logistics without stopping to announce it's racist. Like
So it could have been interesting, but DeLynn made it stupid and naggy.
That comes all the way back around. I think we mentioned it last week, but supposedly, like, Jacob got on with RFM and Colby, who were reviewing the Light and Truth letter, and Jacob said that he would debate them about the naturalistic beginnings of the Book of Mormon, and it was all set to maybe happen on Mormonism Live, like the next week or something like that. And then Jacob said, but I'd also like to discuss what a trans person is, or something like that. And then, of course, the ex-Mormons had to get moralistically haughty about that and say, no, like, we can't platform you now because of that. And like, so wouldn't that just kind of be like an infinite out? Like, you'll never actually have to debate it because we can just
I don't know. Maybe Jacob's just playing 4D chess here, and he's actually just like doesn't believe in any of it, and he's just saying that so that he can be like, hey, look, I'll debate this absurd thing that's unbelievable on my side if you'll debate this absurd thing that's unbelievable on your side, just to juxtapose the two together. So
maybe he's tossing it out as like
Galaxy Brain Jacob.
Hey, we're both allowed to like have a little bit of a something that's kind of doesn't make any damn sense, right? But I mean, Jacob was arguing all week for like why it all should be rational and understandable, and that some of it's just mythology and not actual history and not whatever. But I don't know. I don't know if Jacob will ever get to there of debating the naturalistic creation of the Book of Mormon.
It's such a difficult argument to have, because it's an easy, like, the naturalistic explanation is a dude wrote it. That's it, man. And there's there's the view of the Hebrews thing, which apologists seem to think that they've just debunked because they acknowledged it years and years and years ago. They're like, you guys,
it's not exactly word for word. It's not exactly word for word. This is wrong.
I don't expect it to be word for word. Just like you wouldn't expect a modern translation of like a direct translation from God of the books of Isaiah to exactly match the King James version of the Bible, including the errors.
Yeah. Colby and RFM are going through it, and they're the Light and Truth letter, and kind of dissecting that, which is kind of just like a rehash of going over the CES letter type stuff. That's all interesting. I mean, it gets real tough with those truth claims. It's ultimately, admittedly, why I just can't believe. I struggle believing it. The Ward struggle believing it. I don't believe it. And Ward Radio had 50 minutes on how you're tarred if you don't know that the horses are in Mesoamerica are real or were likely there or something like that this week. Did you watch that video at all?
No, I didn't. I've seen him talk about horses before, and they'll be like, before we thought that horses were only here 80,000 years ago, like ancestors of horses. But now we found out 78,000 years ago that we have horses, ancestors of horses. So we're getting closer, like, kinda. I don't know why we found bones of 80,000-year-old horses before we found bones of 8,000-year-old horses, but
So I'm not a super expert anymore because I wouldn't say ever expert, but there was a time frame. This is kind of like the joke I make. Like, I've read everything Nietzsche ever read. So am I an expert on Nietzsche? No, I read most of it once. Like, I can, the same way I can't regurgitate the Old Testament, I read all the stuff about all the who's he, what's it's, the original stuff of Mormonism, and I can't remember it like word for word. And I'm not going to sit around and memorize it anymore. But I remember just in my general hunching, and I was talking to you guys about this the other day, that my general hunching, I don't even agree with Dan Vogel's assessment, and he knows way more about every little detail than I do. But I think Vogel kind of thinks that Smith was a one-man show who really could just kind of pull that all out of his ass, And
you could but that's kind of assuming that because the apologists, they put a lot of weight on the witnesses, right? And that's like they could have lied, like Oliver Cowdery said he saw.
Yeah, it's assuming that he really wrote it in 60 days or something like that, and like that could have been just not true, and the time frames and all that sorts of stuff. And so I guess he just kind of believes the general time frames that he gives people. But my general sense is that it was a Masonic group effort. That's my belief on like the whole thing. I think Sidney Rigdon was involved in the creation of it. I think maybe several other people you don't even know who just kind of helped create the whole thing.
Well, I'm pretty sure. So I haven't looked into this in a long time either. If I remember right, though, Oliver Cowdery's cousin was Ethan Smith, who wrote View of the Hebrews. Mm-hmm. And I think Sidney Rigdon had a copy or something. I can't remember. It's been too long, and I don't care to really go back and look it up.
Yeah, because it just kind of gets to a point of like, was this feasible? Was this possible? And you hit, yeah, it was. And then you're just kind of done, like I don't need to have it exactly explained perfectly, like how or not, or, it's just, yeah, that could be done. Part of what did that for me, and I've brought up for forever, and I was even invited to Sunstone once to do a comparative literature thing about it. But for me in general, what really pulled my brain out of all that stuff was learning other literature and how freaking amazing it was that people had pulled off. I mentioned before that Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a huge one for me because 19-year-old girl writes a book that stands the tests of time, but it has the same kind of lore around the intro of it about how it was created, how it started, how it might have been like a group effort of very, very smart minds like Lord Byron and Percy Shelley and other people who were all these famous writers who in a group together said, how about we come up with an idea of who can write like the best horror story? And then they just write this horror story that not they, the young one, the 19-year-old girl writes a horror story. And you can totally see how it probably definitely came from her mind because like there's this idea in Frankenstein that it has a little bit to do with giving birth to something and the freaky, scary thing that is the concept of giving birth. And you give birth to something that has its own legs and becomes its own thing and you can't control it. And maybe it's a little bit of a monster. And that might have like an allegorical metaphor to what art is, what creating art is. You create something that doesn't come out exactly how you wanted it to, and now it haunts you to the end of your life or something like that. And it's just this perfect little metaphorical book, and all the writing and the way it's written and how perfect it's all written. She may have had help all the way through it. Her mother, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, Percy Shelley, Lord Byron. She was around literary geniuses all around her. So how did a 19-year-old pump this out? Well, maybe she had help. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she really did just do the whole dang thing by herself, and that's her one book that she ever did. Maybe she did. And to me, like, that whole entire thing just kind of parallels the same questions. Like, we can't know if she did that thing perfectly herself that stood the 200 years of literary genius perfection, or if she had literary help from other literary geniuses who were in her vicinity. And I think that book's as much of an anomaly and work of literary lasting genius as something like the Book of Mormon, if that is a piece of literary genius.
It has chiasms in it, okay?
Oh yeah.
Has to be.
The other one is 100 Years of Solitude. And I just noticed that 100 Years of Solitude is coming out on Netflix this month. And boy, oh boy, they're probably going to fuck it up. I really...
Yeah.
It's been a long time thought like that. You can't film this. You can't make this. And I don't know how they're going to do it. And people have been talking about making a movie out of it for forever. But 100 Years of Solitude is also another interesting book. Gabriel Garcia Marquez wrote it launched the literary boom out of Latin America in the 1950s. It was such a huge book that it put the entire Southern Hemisphere on the map. And then people started pulling authors from all over down there. And the book is largely him kind of regurgitating the stories that he was told around campfires from grandfathers and grandparents and people like that all through his youth and their type of storytelling. And so it's like an example of somebody regurgitating or being able to regurgitate long passages of family storytelling lore and just putting on paper at a very young age type stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Ryan Wimmer says the Book of Mormon was published before Rigdon entered the picture.
Yeah, I don't remember stuff. God damn.
Anyway. Troy says he likes the Frankenstein analogy, even if it doesn't support the patriarchy. That is true. Think about the patriarchy. At the same time, too, like in the whole Mormon world, I mean, Jacob's going on a rampage of telling people that the flood didn't happen, and I probably wouldn't be as like hardliner about Jacob. That like I don't care if somebody believes in the flood. All right? Do you get like that upset about that or something?
No, like I don't know. Even when I was a Mormon, like I heard somebody telling me that like the worldwide flood is impossible for this and this and this reason, and I had two explanations in my head. I was like, well, one, like it's fucking God, dude. Like, so he's magic and powerful, so he could generate water and then get rid of it. But also, you could say that, like, to Noah at that time, the whole world was like the size of something smaller, and every animal could be like every animal that would have been killed by that or something. But I don't know. There's ways to get around it. But.
So is Jacob less tolerant of somebody believing in the flood than I am about somebody believing differently than I believe in the Book of Mormon?
Probably a little bit. I don't know. Cause
like I don't get upset if
you don't
people
really
believe
care.
the Book of Mormon stuff.
Yeah, you don't really care. I don't know if he's not tolerant of it. He's acting all like new atheist about it. That's the funny part. It was kind of like in the debate between him and Trent Horn when he said Trent Horn is going to argue like an atheist, and then they both just ended up arguing like an atheist. It was like,
but he's getting accused all over. Yeah, he's getting accused all over of arguing like an atheist. And
yeah, no, that's
people are using that argument against him. Yeah.
But what he means by arguing like an atheist is pointing out like inconsistencies in physical evidence. That's not necessarily even arguing like an atheist. That's just like arguing like anybody who doesn't believe in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, so what do you think Trent Horn's meaning when he says that sort of thing? Because I think maybe Trent Horn's generally talking about like, don't say that underwear is weird. We have weird stuff.
No, wait, what do you mean? Or what do you?
So Trent Horn, when he says don't argue like an atheist, I think some of the stuff he's generally referring to is like, don't say something's weird or something strange when we have plenty of strangeness in our background too. Or do you think he's just straight up arguing about logic and logical fallacies and all that sort of stuff?
I don't really know.
I think Trent Horn uses logic and logical fallacy.
I don't know what Trent Horn is arguing about, but I felt like Jacob's definition of arguing like an atheist in this was seriously just pointing out anachronisms and shit like that, like using physical evidence to like falsify the Book of Mormon as a historical thing. And
but is that arguing like an atheist, or is it arguing like an atheist is just saying like you don't believe a magical moment could happen?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think Jacob is wrong about what arguing like an atheist is, because like anytime Trent Horn brought up like the dimensions of the plates would have to be too difficult, Jacob would accuse him of arguing like an atheist. Like, no, he's just arguing like somebody that doesn't believe in the Book of Mormon, that he doubts the story for these reasons. And it's funny because then Word Radio will go on to talk about how he's arguing like an atheist by bringing up the dimensions of the plates, and then they'll have a guy on to explain why the dimensions of the plates could totally work. And it'll be like, aren't you guys arguing like atheists now? Like by your own definition?
Yeah. I was hoping there'd be like some short or something from Trent Horn saying to argue like an atheist. When Protestants are like atheists, 5 minutes from Trent Horn. Should we watch that?
May I go for it?
But I think, wasn't he kind of like admonishing like his fellow Catholics to not argue like an atheist, or
I don't
was he
remember.
going after Protestants?
I haven't watched a whole lot of Trent Horn. I've watched none of his religious stuff.
This will come up in another book that's going to come out in a year called, and I'm giving this talk at Steubenville. Right now.
This weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Called When Protestants Argue Like Atheists. This is a series I've done.
Is brilliant. I've heard you do this recently, and I thought it was wonderful. Yeah. You've got a great ability to take complex things and make them so stupidly simple that we all wonder why we hadn't thought of this yet. Or we think, how come someone hasn't addressed this somewhere? Maybe they have. I don't know.
Stupid like a fox. Homer Simpson.
No, I watched your interview with Cameron Bertuzzi, and you addressed this. So feel free to lay it out.
I was going to say that I've noticed that sometimes when Protestants are presented with alleged
stupid like a fox, keep going.
Right, well, like alleged Bible, they say Homer. This seems really stupid like a fox. Back from I think season 2 through 9, the only good Simpsons. I've noticed that when Protestants are presented with difficulties in the Bible, they'll be very generous to the Bible. I'll say, oh, well, there's all of this cultural context we don't understand. There could be textual errors. There's allegory. This is a non-literal reading of the text. And they're willing to explore, and they'll just put a lot of effort into exploring all the possible ways of resolving a Bible difficulty. But when they find a difficulty in the deuterocanonical books like Tobit, that's proof it's not inspired. Or if you read a Vatican I, when it says that in every age it's known that Peter was the vicar of Christ, that Peter received this authority from Jesus. Oh, but what about these church fathers in this period? They don't say anything about that. Oh, see, Vatican I is false. Therefore, Catholicism is false. Well, wait a minute. Dial back. Genesis 1:6 talks about a firmament, a hammered out dome that keeps water above us, which is from a Hebrew cosmology that's false. But that's not an error in Scripture, because the Bible's not asserting scientific truths about the way the world works. Cardinal Caesar Baronius once said, the Bible teaches us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. And so, when I see this, they'll pick up magisterial texts or the Deuterocanon and find, there's a problem right there. Boom, it's false. But they're not willing to give that same elasticity that they'll give to the Bible itself. And so that's dangerous, because if you have that same narrow, I found a contradiction, well, then that can be applied just to the Bible itself. Now, there is a difficulty here, because it's funny, some people have told me, well, Trent, are you going to say there's no errors in the Quran or there's no errors in the Book of Mormon because you don't want to act, because you're acting like an atheist? And my response to that is actually, yeah, I'm actually very reserved in the amount of errors I will ascribe to the Quran or the Book of Mormon.
Just let me pause and back up for a second.
Sure.
So,
but is he like when he went after Jacob, he went all the way after it?
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. There's so much like Christian shit that I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just one of those rules that you don't really follow yourself or something. I don't know. because obviously he doesn't stick to that, you know. But everybody argues like an atheist except for their one God. That's the old saying, right? Except for their own little thing.
I'm trying in my head to steel man what he's saying. Because I guess what he's saying, because he's talking about the firmament, right? It says that there's a firmament, and that's not true. But fuck, I'm having a hard time. And I guess he didn't. I don't know. I don't remember the debate well enough to say this. I can't remember him saying things like what the Book of Mormon prescribes is untrue. He's just saying that, like, well, it couldn't have happened historically because of this and this and this. And the Bible, fuck, I don't know. I'm trying, Trent. I'm trying, but yeah, I think you're just being inconsistent.
When you say that Protestants sometimes argue like atheists, what you're saying is they are as critical of the Deuterocanonicals as atheists are of Scripture without trying to understand the context.
Right. They've already got it set in their mind. Like, just as an atheist has it set in his mind, the proto-canon is just a bunch of human documents, and they're going to show that. I think a lot of Protestants, when they examine the Deuterocanonical books, they will say, these are just human documents, and look at all of these errors in it. And I've covered this. I've had dialogues with two wonderful Protestant. I've had a debate on this on your channel with Steve Christie. Yeah. People can go and watch that. Yep. And I've dialogued with Steve and one of his cohorts. And so he's a goy for Jesus. Now his name is escaping me at the moment, but you can see their channels. And that's what I love. I love having dialogues with people who disagree. But that's one of the criticisms thrown back at me is, oh, are you going to say there's no error? You know, are you acting like an atheist if you say the Book of Mormon is wrong or the Quran? No, I give those books the same amount of leeway, though I still find problems. So, for example, I did a whole video about this where I was engaging I believe he's an imam, or maybe Sheikh Uthman is his name. He's I don't know if he's an imam or not. Maybe he is, but he teaches in San Diego at a mosque there, and he does these tables at Balboa Park. We went to Balboa Park once, so it was fun to talk to atheists. So he had a video talking about Catholicism, and then he was offering evidence for Islam, talking about, in the Quran, talking about the splitting of the moon. And Christians have to be careful with this. So they'll say, oh, the Quran is stupid. It says Muhammad split the moon. Wouldn't people have noticed that? I say, well, the book of Joshua says Joshua made the sun stand still. Wouldn't people have noticed that?
Exactly, yeah.
And so what I would say is, well, in the book of Joshua, that might have been a local optical miracle, where only the people in that battle, the sun was still shining, while the rest of the earth, it was still, the earth rotated and everything was the same.
Yeah, he's probably being a little inconsistent.
It's special pleading, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember enough about the debate to come up with the specific examples, but
well, that's why everybody keeps running into problems with it, because he just kind of like gave like a slogan to say to people when they do that, but then they all have to do it. So then that slogan can always be infinitely whipped out. Don't argue like an atheist.
I'm just arguing like a guy that doesn't believe in your thing. Trent's kind of he's doing the same thing in this that basically Jacob did in their debate, where he's saying we both have nukes, don't use them.
Yeah.
You can tell us that the sun didn't stand still and that there's no firmament, and we can tell you that the moon was never split in half. So let's just not go there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to one of the topics du jour of the week, which is trans kids are at the Supreme Court.
Oh yeah, I watched Kavanaugh questioning about that, and it's wild how often they say that we're talking about gender, not sex, but then they're saying in this case you're discriminating on the basis of sex.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we should pull up like the moment that kind of goes against what Don DeLin's been saying that's now been brought up in the Supreme Court, and that is suicidality of the trans people.
Pretty remarkable moment. Watch.
But on page 195 of the CAS report, it says, there is no evidence that gender affirmative treatments reduce suicide.
What I think that is referring to is there is no evidence in the studies that this treatment reduces completed suicide. And the reason for that is completed suicide, thankfully and admittedly, is rare, and we're talking about a very small population of individuals with studies that don't necessarily have completed suicides within them. However, there are multiple studies, long-term longitudinal studies that do show that there is a reduction in suicidality, which I think is a positive outcome to this treatment.
That's one of the funniest things to me right there.
Activists have to answer a follow-up question.
That hurts her argument. I don't think she realizes it, but it hurts her argument because if I'm understanding right, she's saying that rates of people committing suicide do not increase, right? Do not increase or decrease; they stay about the same. But people having suicidal thoughts decreases. So you're decreasing the amount of people with suicidal thoughts, but then increasing the amount of people who do have suicidal thoughts who end up actually committing suicide. So I feel like that really actually hurts the argument.
Wait, because they always put up the gambit that you can either have a trans kid or a dead kid.
Yeah. So she's conceding the point that so there's out of 100 kids that don't get gender care the way they want to, maybe 50 of them will have suicidal ideation and 30 of them will actually go through with it, right? But she's saying that the kids who do go through the affirmative care, there's 100 of them again, still 35 of them actually end up committing suicide, but only 40 of them had suicidal thoughts. So it's a higher percentage of people with suicidal thoughts that actually end up going through a suicide in that case. So it doesn't.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It just fucks over the argument, kind of.
So their suicidality is real.
Yeah, the suicidality goes down, but the suicide rate increases. They would
so
have
then
to
the rate increases with a diminished suicidality. So that means a higher percentage of people with suicidal thoughts commit suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That was a terrible, terrible thing to bring up. Like that was, and it's bullshit too. I really doubt those numbers that she's saying that like it actually makes people less suicidal. Still the same amount of people commit suicide though. That doesn't add up.
That thing's tossed around so much in like the ex-Mormon world and the world of all this stuff. I saw you ask that person on the atheism Facebook page who's going to have a trans-affirming doctor on to ask them like what they think of the Cass report. And one of the things that Walsh was pointing out here is that they tried to skip over the Cass report in this, and it was just like put down in footnotes. But you can't just footnote stuff away, stuff in the Supreme Court so easily. And so all of the different Supreme Court's justices glommed onto it and started talking about it. So then Walsh gave a speech about it, and like they said, the mask is off. They're trying to kill us because, again, they said they want to eradicate the trans ideology, but.
So to the trans activists over there claiming this is all about the rights of children, I say again, yes, you're right, it is. They have a right to be protected from you. Children have a right to be protected from all of those people over there who want to harm them and damage them and destroy them. And they will be. They are going to lose. They are losing right now. We are not going to let them harm our children. This case is just the beginning of the fight. It is not the end. We are not going to rest until every child is protected, until trans ideology is entirely erased from the earth. That's what we're fighting for.
And that person took it as they're trying to kill us?
Yeah, I know. I've met ex-Mormons who have said that they want to get rid of Mormonism entirely, and I've never once accused them of wanting to kill Mormons.
Man, I swear my, look at this. I'm just clicking on this just to see what's in my feed naturally. And people say that X is taken over by conservatives or whatever. I know that I subscribe to a higher level of conservatives than I do
I know.
lefties or liberals, and my feed is straight leftism. Like, oh, I stand with Howard. Here's people like dogging on Fox News. Here's Kyle Kalinske. Like, I just get everything Kyle Kalinske ever wrote.
Yeah, me too. Brian Tyler Cohen, yeah.
Brian Tyler Cohen, and I don't think I subscribe to him.
I get.
I don't even follow him. I don't
Yeah.
even follow him, and I get all of them. And people I follow, I don't get.
I get pushed like tiny normies with the same amount of followers as me, like 3, that are like they're lefties on there. I'm not following anything like that. Yeah, Republicans against Trump.
Republicans against
CBS
Trump,
News.
CBS News. I think what it is, and what it has to be, is that they pay for boosting. Richard Hanania. Goodbye, Senator Romney. You're too good for our ass. Senator Romney gave his closing speech in the Senate. And there he says, "Oh, it's so good. Like, lefties and righties were all there." This Joe person, I don't know who this is. I see everything from Joe.
I
Look at
get
this.
her all the time.
I didn't curate this at all. I just clicked on the homepage. This is right wing Twitter. Brooklyn Dad Defiant is the next one. This is just my home feed.
I get him too all the time. They must pay.
The majority of millennials and Gen Z use subtitles, the survey says. Congressman Robert Garcia. No one takes with working billionaires like that. Okay, that's lefty. Aurora. Oh, you remember this dude?
Yeah.
No way in sync. Look at this. We're batting. Oh, there's Elon Musk. I see Elon Musk, which Mike Benz. Listen to him on Joe Rogan. I've been listening to Mike Benz for a while. But his stuff is well documented and backed up. Receipts for all of it. And of course, everybody on Twitter said, "Don't listen to Mike Benz. He's a Russian apologist," or something like that. Not even talked about Russia very much. My whole entire feed is this. Art Candy. I don't know who Art Candy is. I don't follow Art Candy. MAGA really is comprised of the dumbest people on the planet. We pay Social Security. This is Jack Smith. I say, I don't follow Jack Smith. You know what I mean?
South Korea is pulling a Trump.
Yeah. South Korea. Oh yeah, I guess there was some coup attempt there or something, but they didn't let them do it without guns. Anyway, stupid Twitter.
Stupid Twitter.
I don't have much else, and we are hitting the 3-hour mark.
Yeah.
Do you have any funny things to share? You've been reading any degenerate books?
No, I've been because I wasn't really of age when the whole Iraq war thing happened, so I wanted to look it up. The reason I wanted to look it up was because I'm talking to the liberal guy at work that I work with a lot, and he was asking me, like, why do you think Trump? I don't know how anybody could vote Trump, and I think we need to bring back decent, like, why can't we just have like decent old-fashioned Republicans and stuff like that? It's like who? And I thought of like the last Republican president. I was like Bush? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I'd vote Trump 100 times before I voted Bush. What are you talking about? And he's like, oh no, Bush was way better than Trump. I was like, he lied us into a war. Like, the things you complain about Trump to me are that he bankrupted a casino and that he's racist and January 6th and he fucked a porn star. And
yeah, but the war stuff always, people are like, oh, good old Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was brought up by Mike Benz in that Joe Rogan episode. He's been brought up a lot of times with the Atlantic Council and all that stuff. He is one of our biggest profiteers of foreign adventurism, and no mean tweet in the world, I think, makes up for that.
I know.
Your trolley problems don't make sense to me, especially the people who are in the not too down with war side of the world.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm like, if you just put me on Earth, it's my first day on Earth, and you're having me vote between two guys, and like, what can you tell me about? What's the worst thing about this guy? Well, he fucked a porn star, and while his wife was pregnant. I'm like, wow, that's shitty. I don't want to vote for that guy. Gross. And then what about this guy? He's like, well, he fabricated an entire story about how this third world country had weapons of mass destruction, so we could go in and occupy them and make a regime change, and it cost hundreds of thousands of lives of our own soldiers and their people. Like, okay, I guess I'll do the porn star guy. Like that feels like such an easy choice.
Mitt Romney puts on the Machiavellian face of a guy who's got like a great big family, and he's decent, just a decent man. He even marches with the Black Lives Matter people. Oh, and he took a principled stance about what was the word? Impeaching Trump, because Trump was looking into what was going on over in the Ukraine. I'm taking a principled stance against this war hawk who has done nothing but profiteer. Not nothing, because he profiteers in other ways through his Bain Capital, which if you guys get upset at, you think CEOs should be killed for their United Healthcare stuff. I mean, the way Bain Capital would go around and strip away jobs to make companies profitable. I mean, I think you got a guy that maybe you need to send somebody with a silencer around there, although I don't condone that even for the United Healthcare guy. But no, that guy is your decent person. I miss the decent Republicans who just decently war hawked around the world.
Yeah, Jesus. Fucking hell. And then there's Bush Sr. All you really have to tell me about him is like, well, you got the porn star guy or you got this guy. What's his deal? Well, he was the head of the CIA. I was like, oh yeah, let's do the porn star guy.
Yeah. And that's what the Mike Benz guy talks about. The Atlantic Council is one of the NGOs behind most of this entire stuff. Has a board of 7 former CIA directors. That's all you need to know about them. Yeah, I'm with you. It just does not line up. It doesn't make sense about like how you guys weigh out who is the goodie and who is the baddie to me. And I don't care if you look at Trump and say, ooh, he's gross and a baddie in his own ways. Just stop so blindly thinking that the other people, like I've said 1,000 times before, the Machiavellian ideas of different leaders. You've got a grandiose narcissist, the lion, Trump, under Machiavellian's prescriptions, or you got foxes, the Machiavellians, people who go and look all perfect like little Mr. Romney, and behind that, he has all sorts of interest in Ukraine and always has.
Yeah, well, and then we start talking about he's like, oh, Trump wants to deport a bunch of people, and that's just not practical. It's not going to happen. It can't happen. And I was like, I mean, I guess you could ask Obama for advice on that. Like, hey, how'd you do it? You were a deporting motherfucker. How'd you do it? And I get you. It probably is impractical to deport all of the illegal immigrants, but you can deport the ones that like you have in jail because they committed a crime and you got their fingerprints and figured out they're not citizens.
Yeah. Don't make no sense to me. Look at this. Nutter Butter is doing a weird thing, but I mean, I guess it's not weird if it makes people look at it, but they've gone crazy on their advertisements in TikTok.
It's 3 p.m. on a Friday. Stop the floor. Time, we're going to the forest. Yes. 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 We're going to the forest. Yes. Yes. We're going to the forest. Yes. Yes.
Did they just time travel and rip a shit poster from 2009 like make us a crazy ad?
I mean,
here's some LSD.
And it's not just one. I mean, like they've gone off the rails.
This looks like Adult Swim stuff. But like if Bloomberg paid somebody to make it.
Look at this. They keep doing ones that like they put shrimp. They put shrimp on the Nutter Butters.
Yeah, this is seriously just 2009 where the funniest thing in the world was complete random chaos.
Yeah. I remember Quiznos. They had those commercials that suddenly had like those weird, creepy rats on them, and they thought it was like a good idea. and supposedly those commercials tanked Quiznos or something like that. But I mean, this is getting a bunch of people to look at Nutter Butter, I guess. Look at this. I don't know if I can click over, but shoot, I can't click over. But this one clicks over. Oh, there it is. And then this, look in the tree, like a face slowly starts to appear.
What the fuck? Are they about to go bankrupt or something? And this is just their Hail Mary?
I have no idea what they're doing, man. Buy Nutter Butters, I guess. They're all into their Balenciaga stuff.
I'm not going to, but I'm sure a bunch of people will because of this. Like, yeah, you got noticed. It was like when Wendy's started being really snarky on Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at it, I guess. So now, do you want a Nutter Butter? Let's watch Danny talk to the Wicked ladies.
Can't hear it.
I'm not sure.
How about now?
Yeah.
In the light of the day, you are
truly-
such a gift.
You brought such light into the room. Thank you very much.
We appreciate
for coming into
you.
this room.
Okay, well, I haven't said anything yet, but nice to meet the both of you.
Are they weirder than Nutter Butter, or is Nutter Butter weirder?
No, they're weirder because Nutter Butter's trying to be weird. They're trying to be authentic.
So I'm from InfoWars. I'm not sure if you've heard of us, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. What drugs do they give you to make you like this? Is it just Molly, some psychedelics? What is going on here? Because people are worried.
I'm a person, and I feel, and I have feelings, and I can share them.
And if you need to cry right now, you cry.
Yeah. And
what is she on?
All right, so you're crying again. I was warned this was going to happen. People on the internet have accused you both of being some kind of reptilian lizard people. Do you care to comment on that?
We're no more lizard people than you are, which is to say, sure, we all have a bit of lizard in us.
Oh, I'm definitely not a lizard person. That was a weird answer.
What's that?
No, I was just laughing.
Cynthia, you seem the most unhinged between the two of you. We've established you're both on a lot of drugs right now. If you could be one emotion, what would that be?
ooh, that's a good question. Probably fear for my life. A fear that if we don't do enough of these press junkets, that the producers will lock us in the scary room again.
Whoa, that is dark. All right, to you, Ariana, if you could be one emotion, what would that be?
Please help us. I'm so tired. I don't want to do these anymore.
Hollywood pedophile rings, fact or fiction?
Why am I feeling emotional about that?
Because it's true. And it's a lot.
Okay, interesting. What about adrenochrome? There's a rumor that in Hollywood, in order for many of you to stay young, you harvest the blood of terrified young children about to be sacrificed. Can either of you speak to the anti-aging benefits?
Well, I'm a bit new at all of this, but I can confirm I look much younger and have more energy since I started taking it.
I'm actually 72 years old, so I think you can draw your own conclusions. The stuff works. I just wish there was a way to look younger and more vibrant that didn't involve the ritualistic sacrifice of innocent children.
All right, final question, which is actually a two-parter. Was Tower 7 a controlled demolition? And tied into that, what are your thoughts on the dancing Israeli seen on the rooftop on 9/11?
Didn't Tower 7 fall on its own?
Well, there was a fire on the roof. Does it make sense to either of you that an entire building fell down because there was a fire on the roof? Oh, looks like your handlers are letting me know this interview is over now. Good luck to both of you with your satanic and demonic film. If you like that...
You know, he keeps getting his stuff fact-checked by he keeps getting his stuff fact-checked by different magazines, yeah.
Oh, shit.
Customer support.
Yeah, hi. I've had one of your beds for about a week, and it's just really uncomfortable.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that, sir.
Is that plain sound?
Yes, sir, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry. It's been ladies calling all day. You're the first guy to ever do this.
What?
What's uncomfortable about the mattress for you?
Well, the ad said that it was cool in the summer and warm in the winter, and it's summer, and I'm really sweating here.
Well, that certainly isn't what we hope your experience will be with our mattress, but I think we can work on that right now. Let's start with question number one. How's work going?
Work?
Yeah, work. You have a $3,000 mattress. I'm assuming you have a pretty good job.
Yeah, I mean, I do fine. I'm sorry. Why is it?
Yeah, there must be somebody there that's grinding those tiny little gears of yours.
I mean, nobody grinds my little. I have normal gears. That's irrelevant. I mean, look, I just want a refund. I don't even know how to return this thing.
All right, well, that'll be easy. I'm just going to check here, though. Are you married?
Am I married?
Yes, sir. It is sir, right? Did I already ask that?
Yes, it's sir. Sir, can you hear my voice? You've asked me that twice now. Yes, I'm married.
Are you married? How's that going?
It's going fine. What?
You know what I mean. Is she giving you a little,
What the fuck? Please put your supervisor on the phone. Please put your supervisor on the phone. Please.
Look, this is what I'm saying. There's a lot of things that affect how we sleep.
Oh, it's freezing.
I don't even think that's the one I meant to send, but I don't remember. I
Which
found
one
the
did you
wrong
mean to send?
I can't find it because I thought that was the one, but now I can't remember.
Oh, why is it freezing up? Well, it's freezing anyway.
Yeah, these Gillian Keefe's skits are fucking awesome. I love them.
When was that around?
Like 3 years ago. It was around the time he got fired. Well, this was going on before he got fired. Kind of what got him noticed was his skits.
So they were going to use his skits, and then they didn't.
Yeah, I mean he's good at writing skits, so they missed out. But I think it turned out a lot better for him because now he's not on the sinking ship that is SNL.
Well. All right. Well, I don't know that they had anything else. We might have hit it all.
Yeah, I think we did.
Weird world. Yeah. Daniel Penny. They're out deliberating right now.
Oh, fuck.
I've got one last one for you. This one's. Should I show this one? This is the worst one ever. This is the worst one.
All right, show it.
This is the worst one. All right, let's see it. Is it going to freeze on me?
It's not playing sound.
Dang it.
It likes doing that.
It gives me a warning on the other screen. I just don't see that warning. All right, you hear it now.
Interesting you say that.
You hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the fire was burning you? Yeah, of course. I was there.
Interesting you say that because I can still hear the sound effects of somebody getting crossed in the background, which tells me that you ain't changed the battery in your smoke detector. Have you learned nothing, my brother?
Oh, God damn. It gets me every single time. Every time on Mark Dice, he plays the smoke detector beat.
Oh yeah, and it's in the background.
Anytime, like I don't know how I forget every time. Like anytime Joy Reid is talking, it goes on. I just start laughing my ass off. Oh fuck.
Yeah. Let me see that supervisor one's going. I can't. Okay. Yeah, that one's terrible. Anyway, I think that's about it.
Well, shit.
Thanks for hanging, everybody. We solved the world. Steve, we need to put Blinken today. He was urging the Ukrainians to lower the military conscription age. If they lower the age, we'll be sure to have the weapons. Oh my goodness. I just woke up after missing most of this. Steve, we need to put up some of your cartoons on here better.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's call it Free Hunter. Free Hunter.
All right, we'll see you later.
Later, y'all.